that 31 years ago, when the Religious Freedom Restoration Act was actually being debated in the halls of Congress, you had anti abortion groups already warning Americans that this law might eventually be used to push forth abortion rights. Article that was published all the way back in the year 1992 by Mr. Mark Chapo. He was the general counsel for an organization called the Catholic Conference. And here's what he wrote, again, back in 1992. Quote, Religious Freedom Restoration Act proponents have finally acknowledged that the act, if passed, will be used to seek access to abortions. Some pro-life supporters of this law attempt to dismiss the risk to unborn children inherent in the act by arguing that the risk only arises if Roe versus Wade is overturned, that for 20 years courts have routinely rejected free exercise arguments for abortion, and that the justices prepared to overrule Roe will do so because the government's interest in protecting unborn life is compelling from the point of conception. These arguments are fundamentally flawed. And indeed, looking with a hindsight of 31 years, it appears that Mark was right, and this is exactly what the Satanic Temple is doing now. Although there is something else that's really worth mentioning here, which is that this abortion angle is just one part, it's just one theater of battle in a much larger war that's being currently waged by the Temple of Satan. That's because besides this whole religious abortion legal battle, well, the Satanic Temple is also status as a non-profit religious organization to push many other satanic elements onto American life. For instance, over in the state of Idaho, the local Satanic Temple there set up a satanic altar in the state capitol just ahead of Christmas. And it's worth mentioning that they did this legally after filing all the necessary paperwork. Likewise, the Satanic Temple, they've been using lawsuits to get rid of Judeo-Christian iconography from public grounds across the whole country, such as the lawsuit over in Arkansas aiming to remove the Ten Commandments from the state capitol. And then also, the Satanic Temple has been expanding its after-school Satan Club program for kids after they scored a legal victory over in the U.S. District Court of Pennsylvania on the grounds of free speech. And so, this is essentially what this organization is for America's freedom of speech and religion, alongside the laws that are already on the books, to get themselves recognized as a religion, and then to subsequently push onto American society these satanic elements. It really brings to mind that very famous passage in a letter that was written by John Adams all the way back in the year 1798. Quote, our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. If you would like to dig deeper into this story, I'll throw all my research notes from today's episode down into the description box below this video if you happen to be the type of person that likes to dig into the weeds. And also, I would like to give a big shout out to Mr. Eric Schumacher. He is our intrepid researcher who helped to pull together all this information and make sense of it all. He is currently washing his eyes out with holy water as we speak. Thank you, sir, for your sacrifice. And then lastly, if you're thinking to yourself, man, I love this content, I just wish Roman would put out more episodes every single week. Well, you're in luck, because I do. Over on Epic TV, our awesome no censorship video platform, I publish anywhere between 1 to 3 exclusive episodes of Facts Matter every single week, usually on topics that are quite here on YouTube. And so if you'd like to check out those episodes every single week, including a huge backlog from the last 3 years, well, now it's a great chance because the Epic Times has recently extended its amazing sale and subscription. A 6-month trial subscription for just a single dollar. A 6-month subscription for just a single dollar. This is by far the best sale I've ever seen. We make absolutely no money on the sale. The idea is just to get you in the door. What?
No one's ever seen such a good deal.
Have a pay transparency plan but don't know how to get started? Let us help you put your plan in motion. Say hi to Bob.
Well, a string of arsons in Edmonton has police concerned, and now word the attacks could be tied to a large-scale extortion scheme. The alleged target is in community. WCTV's Alberta Bureau Chief Bill Fortune.
What?
There's more.
Fires like this one have lit up the sky over Edmonton in recent months and left new houses and homes under construction leveled or heavily damaged.
Useless motherfuckers.
2 months are being investigated as arsons.
A lot of resources away from not only our fire services investigating, but also our police investigating, and it's concerning for me that residents are feeling unsafe.
Police believe the fires are part of an extortion scheme targeting business owners from Edmonton's South Asian community in the home construction industry. It's alleged the extortionists use social media and text messages to demand money and make threats, often knowing personal information about the victim. Cash wasn't paid, calling complaints.
It's a frightening situation, and it's just another emerging way to try and get money out of innocent people.
6 people have been arrested and charged, aged 18 to 20. Police are still looking for this man, a person of interest in one of the fires. And investigators are asking the public for tips before more fires are set, more lives put at risk.
Somebody needs to speak up and trust police and justice system to protect them before some innocent person.
Yeah, well,
Fires. Metro Vancouver
it'll really
has seen an
fucking make it
uptick in
easy.
similar crimes recently, also targeting business leaders within the South Asian community.
More and more people are coming forward to receive letters or threats of similar nature.
And extortion schemes like this have also been reported in Ontario's Peel region. Some experts suspect the crimes are all a national investigation. Sandy.
Okay, Bill, thank you.
Fuck you, Bill.
And then the lawyers brought an emergency application to have the judge recuse themselves, which didn't amuse the judge at all. So I talked about that, and in that previous video, I predicted that they would probably have to pay a whole bunch of money. Well, now we have the result. This is the follow-up. We have the conclusion to this story, and spoiler alert, they're going to have to pay how much money and why. We're going to go through the decision as well because the court wanted to make very clear that this was not okay. They wanted to express disapproval in the strongest possible language. And they don't pull any punches. The court's spitting fire. So we're going to go through this one because I'm glad it's not me. So let's have a look. This is the case of Jessica McGaw and Sobeys Capital Incorporated. And so this is before Justice Mills, and this is the cost endorsement. So the plaintiff claims she was wrongfully terminated by the defendant and seeks significant damages, including aggravated and punitive damages. So this is the original basis for the claim. Right? She's saying she's improper, and she wants a lot of money, including money to punish wrongdoing, essentially, as opposed to compensate for harm. The plaintiff elected to have her trial determined by a jury. On the fifth day of trial, while a material witness for the defense was providing his testimony, counsel for the plaintiff called up on their computers an image of Charles Manson, and then huddled together and laughed amongst themselves, mocking the witness. Evidently, they were of the view that the witness bore some resemblance to the notorious cult leader who was convicted and imprisoned for murder and conspiracy to commit murder. This was done within a direct sightline of the jury box. The behavior of counsel was witnessed by a juror who sent a note to me at the first opportunity when the behavior could be reported in a confidential way. The juror indicated he found the behavior to be inappropriate and he wanted it brought to my attention. Good to the juror. No fault with the juror here. This is exactly what this video is. It is unknown whether any other juror saw the image or witnessed the behavior of counsel. Something he could have. And if one juror saw it, I mean, they're all kind of in the same spot. If one juror saw it, I'm going to bet that multiple jurors saw it. After receiving submissions from counsel for both parties, I concluded there was no appropriate or adequate instruction to begin with the jury to address the issue of counsel mocking a material witness by likening him to a manipulative serial killer. I mean, what instruction would you give here? If you call out counsel's behavior as inappropriate, then you're going to be held to task for basically calling out one side's counsel. And if you don't call it out, well, then the jury is now making this connection, which is entirely inappropriate. There's no way you'd be able to make this as a submission to the court. The conduct was so egregious, it left me with no alternative but to discharge the jury. And when the court starts using language like this, courts usually use very gentle language. They're very soft-spoken. And typically they will engage in what I like to call judicial snark, which is that the court will call something out, but they'll do so in very guarded kind of phrasing that don't really, that most people would kind of say are a little overly subtle. But that's just how the courts talk. When the court starts saying that something is so egregious, and especially talking about this as the behavior of counsel, the court's mad. This justice is real mad. When the plaintiff summarily rejected the offer to proceed with the trial by judge alone, I declared mistrial. Now, in fairness, I probably would have rejected that offer too, just because having now infuriated the justice, and the justice is a judge with different terms here. I know that's going to be a little bit confusing, but it is what it is. Having now infuriated the court, you don't really want the justice to be the one deciding the trial, maybe. And they wanted a jury, right? That's their right. It's their right to have a jury on this, so yeah, they don't have to do that. But, so the court declares a mistrial. Counsel were invited to make written submissions on costs, and they were specifically asked to address Rule 5707 of the Rules of Civil Procedure, the rule which permits costs to be ordered payable personally by counsel. Now, this is a very rare remedy. What this means is that normally costs in an application are paid for by the parties. So that's because typically costs arise because of actions you've taken. We chose to litigate this sub-issue, this application. We won this application or we lost this application, and therefore costs follow from that. And these are tactical decisions the client would have had some involvement in. But the client should not be on the hook for the bad behavior of lawyers. And sometimes lawyers behave badly. So there's a rule in the Rules of Civil Procedure here that allows for the court to say, no, this is going to get paid, but it's going to get paid by the lawyer, not by the client, by you specifically. So that's what the court was saying. Show me why you shouldn't have to pay this personally. The court goes on to say, in my view, counsel has brought the administration of justice into this review. Now, I'm just going to say, these are magic words in the sense that these are words that have more significance than you might think, because the rules of professional ethics require that you not bring the administration of justice into this review. So, quite frankly, this filing should be triggering these lawyers to make a self-report to the Law Society to say, I got a really adverse finding. You guys need to determine if this is an ethical violation. So hopefully they're doing that, because if not, I'm sure somebody else is reporting me. As an officer of the court, it is shocking that counsel would mock a witness in the courtroom, whether the trial is before a jury or a judge sitting alone. I make no finding of professional misconduct because he's not the person to do that. That's going to be up to the disciplinary boards. But there was a clear lack of courtesy and respect displayed in the courtroom by counsel, which impacted the fairness of the trial. He's making no findings of professional misconduct. He's making several findings of fact that would form the basis for a finding of professional misconduct. So, of great concern to me is that counsel failed to acknowledge the potential impact of the behavior on their own client. And their client is looking for a result in this proceeding, right? Now what they're getting, all sorts of things, right? So this actually hurts the client. They also fail to recognize or acknowledge the prejudice it may cause to the defendants. Counsel remained focused on the fact that their mocking of the witness in the image of Charles Manson was not evidence in the trial. Okay, but you still continue the jury pool. In the plaintiff's cause submission, the plaintiff made that the disclosure was inadvertent, and she heavily disputes whether the conduct was sufficiently egregious to warrant full indemnity costs. Now, I'm just going to note here, this is kind of a legal fiction here, because these are submissions on behalf of the plaintiff, so it's her voice, except this is really on behalf of plaintiff's counsel. And this is a place where there's a bit of a conflict of interest, because plaintiff has every interest at this point that the cost be paid personally by plaintiff's counsel, because then she saves a pile of money and the lawyers pay the money. Whereas plaintiff's counsel would like to see those costs put on their client. That's a conflict, right? That's an issue. If this were me in this seat, I would be hiring my own lawyer to make these submissions to try to avoid the conflict of interest problem. I'd be talking to the Law Society going, I need some guidance. And, hopefully I'm never in this position, because hopefully I make choices with my life. So, the plaintiff advises the seeking leave to appeal the declaration of a mistrial and submits to judicial consideration to not award full or substantial indemnity costs to the defendant. And I'm not sure if I skipped over it because he submits that given both parties made submissions against the declaration of a mistrial, he is not committed to mistrial law being caused by the conduct of plaintiff's counsel. Neither side wanted a mistrial because they wanted this decided. But the court's not going to have this. The court's not going to be listening to this. The court's got some pretty strong feelings about this one, and there's not to say it. The mistrial was due entirely to the outrageous behavior of counsel for the plaintiff. This was not the exercise of poor judgment during the cut and thrust of a hotly contested trial. Sometimes when you're in the middle of something, you might say something that is regrettable. There have been cases where lawyers have sworn at the other counsel or something like that because they're upset. He's saying, it's not that at all, and goes on to say, rather, counsel mocking a witness in direct view of the jury lacks the exercise of any judgment at all. The conduct cannot be justified as being the exercise of bold and fearless advocacy in a vigorous defense of their client. The conduct was inexcusable and merits reproof. Counsel were clearly derelict in their duties as officers of the court and have respected the integrity of the administration of justice. Mocking a witness by likening him to an notorious serial killer cannot be tolerated in any respect, including in circumstances of high conflict litigation. I therefore find this is a rare and exceptional circumstance, because that's really what's required. They don't order these kinds of things often, which merits an exercise of my discretion pursuant to Rule 5707 sub 1 sub c, to order the costs thrown away, payable personally by counsel, on a full indemnity basis. So full indemnity means, normally when you get costs, you don't get like dollar for dollar costs. If it costs you $50,000 to run a trial, and you get costs, you're probably getting like $10,000, like some portion of it. Full indemnity means that you get back dollar for dollar. What was spent, you get back. And what costs thrown away means is the costs that are essentially wasted. Because when you think about a mistrial, some of the work that you put in on this trial is going to be reusable. You can use it again for the next trial. But some of it's going to be wasted. As an analogy, let's imagine I build a wooden chair. And partway through the wooden chair building, something happens and it's ruined. And I have to start over. Well, the materials that are physically broken and destroyed, those are thrown away. But maybe I can say the chair legs, those wouldn't be thrown away costs. If I bought a particular kind of power tool that I was using to work on that, that wouldn't be a thrown away cost either, because then I can use it in the next chair I made. So that's kind of the distinction on thrown away costs. It's not all costs, but it's every, it's dollar for dollar what was wasted in this. The two-step analysis which must be undertaken has been satisfied. The misconduct of counsel was serious, inexcusable, and patently outrageous. It has caused costs to be unnecessarily incurred in a retrial. The conduct of counsel compromised the integrity of the judicial process and resulted in a mistrial after 5 days of evidence before the jury. Ooh, that's expensive. 5 days of trial is not cheap. The mocking of a witness by counsel cannot be tolerated under any circumstances, and it cannot be justified as being properly undertaken in particular circumstances of this wrongful dismissal case. Mocking the physical appearance of a witness by counsel can never be excused as being an exercise of resolute advocacy, which is what they tried to argue. They tried to argue that this was something that they were going to make an issue in the trial, which was a bold statement. Even applying the extreme caution principle, an order imposing costs against counsel personally is warranted. The defendant who provided a bill of costs seeking $140,674.88 in costs thrown away because of the mistrial. Litigation lawyers are all about accounting. They will have accounted for that in detail. The vast majority of the costs claimed have indeed been wasted. There are, however, some expenses incurred which will be used at the retrial, which is now scheduled for October 24th. particular, the joint document brief, the will say statements, the trial brief, the jury questions, and the legal research will undoubtedly be utilized in the second trial and may be recoverable in that proceeding if the defendant is ultimately the successful party. So he's saying you're going to be able to use this and you can claim these costs at the next trial if you win. And if you don't win, then you get nothing for those. So the disbursements associated with the joint document brief and the brief of authority are also expenses that may be recovered following the retrial. The counsel fees incurred in the days leading up to the trial in preparation and the time incurred at trial are all costs thrown away. The witness preparation will need to be redone considering the lengthy passage of time until the scheduled retrial. The fees and expenses incurred in attending the trial and compelling the witnesses to attend will need to be incurred again. So, I'm going to skip over this a little bit, but we've got, the bottom line on this is that the court says, considering some of the work product will be a future use at the retrial, I find that a reasonable and proportionate amount to order for costs thrown away because of this trial is $100,000 in fees plus HSC, which is sales tax, and disbursements of $4,000 inclusive of the tax. This amount is an intuitive estimation of the fees and disbursements incurred wasted due to the conduct of counsel. They recognize that some fees and disbursements included on this trial will be used at the retrial. These costs are payable forthwith, which means right now, by counsel on a joint and several basis. What does that mean? Well, there's two lawyers on this, and what this means with joint and several basis is that the other side, and this is Sobeys, right? They're a big corporation, but they're definitely going to come after their money here. Each lawyer is on the hook for the full amount. That doesn't mean that Sobeys can claim double the amount, but it does mean that they can pick whichever one to go after and go after them, and then force the other one to sue in order to recover this. So Sobeys gets to choose how they divide up who they go after. So that can create some interesting tension between these two lawyers, because if Sobeys goes after one of them, then the other one says, hey, you owe me half. And you might say, I don't owe you half, I owe you a third because your behavior was worse. And then maybe these other two lawyers end up in a lawsuit with each other, which would make it hard for them to continue on at that October trial. So that could be fun. So this order is not intended to be financially punitive, but rather compensatory. The defendant is entitled to be compensated for the costs incurred which have been wasted solely due to the conduct of plaintiff's counsel. I adopt the words of Finch, the true penal effect is in the court's disappropriation of the subject conduct rather than in the monetary penalty. That's part of why the court is chewing them out so thoroughly here. And I think, okay, well, that's a lot of money, and ouch. And you're not wrong, but the court's also not done, because there's round two. And round two is this. And this is because the plaintiff brought an urgent motion to have me refused from making any decision on costs related to this trial declaration. Contrary to the submission of counsel, the mere fact the motion was scheduled on an urgent basis for hearing does not presumptively determine the motion is actually urgent. Just because you say it's urgent doesn't mean it's urgent. And if you say it's urgent and it's not urgent, the court's going to be upset. After hearing the matter, I concluded the motion was not urgent and that it was brought solely in an effort to engage in reverse judge shopping. And what he means by that is they're not picking the judge, they're picking a judge real upset with.
Why did you look
This
down
amount
first?
is reprehensible, scandalous, or egregious conduct on the part of the plaintiff, which warrants an order of costs on a substantial indemnity basis as a form of chastisement. I therefore ordered costs payable to the defendant on a substantial indemnity basis and invited submission from counsel on the appropriate quantum. So the defendant seeks costs in the refusal motion to the amount of $17,000, $393.05, being 1.5 times the partial indemnity amount of $11,570.70. The plaintiff submits that this is an unreasonable and beyond that which an unsuccessful party could reasonably expect to pay. Do you think the court's feeling a lot of sympathy for you right now? The plaintiff has not, however, submitted the cost outline demonstrating what's being incurred in this motion. Therefore, to make a comparative analysis to ascertain if you would have reasonably paid in the circumstances. This is like basic requirements. This is something that should have been done. And the court is saying, why did you do this? This is obvious. You're making submissions on costs. Why do I not have your submissions on costs? Come on. That was literally what the court asked you to do. The plaintiff submits there was no necessity for the defendant to respond to the refusal motion, as it did not affect the defendant, and he had no particular interest in the motion. Come on. Do you really think the defendant has no interest in whether or not the justice Henry Manor refuses himself?
Thank you, come again.
That's a ridiculous submission.
Thank you, come again.
This submission is without merit. The defendant had significant costs incurred and thrown away as a result of mistrial. Refusal motion. Having presided over the trial and having declared the mistrial, I was in the best position to make fair and just decisions regarding the costs going away. Which again is that plaintiff's counsel pays $100,000 personally. It was entirely reasonable for the defendant to file a responding faction and to oppose the motion. Yeah, they're entitled to say we disagree. Quite appropriately, the defendant did not file an affidavit on the motion as there was no evidence required beyond the transcript of the hearing. The only ground on which the refusal motion was advanced arose during the mistrial proceeding. The plaintiff failed to order the transcript, relying instead on her memory of what transpired that day. Again, the court is going, really? Did you maybe want a lawyer in this? Like, this is, if you want to rely on what's happening during the court proceeding, order the transcript. This was the defendant who added costs in counsel having to review their notes and having to obtain an unofficial transcript. The court obtained the official transcript prior to hearing the motion. It confirmed the plaintiff's memory was flawed, and several statements made in her sworn affidavit were proven to be wrong. Now, that's a big deal. Before you get your client to swear an affidavit about what happened in court, maybe you should have the transcript so that you don't get your client to swear an affidavit as to wrong facts. Because considering the factors enumerated in Rule 5701, the Rule of Civil Procedure, I find a reasonable and proportionate cost order on a substantial indemnity basis is $15,000 as claimed in the amount of $86.70. So, and the court notes that this motion was represented as being urgent and therefore scheduled on an urgent basis. This required counsel for the defendant to respond under very tight timelines, while also being under a court-ordered obligation to prepare and file cost submissions regarding the mistrial. You were already busy with a tight timeline for that, and then you made them do advancing the motion on an urgent basis will often result in higher expenses than with ordinarily the case. Additional resources will often need to be employed, resulting in some unavoidable duplication of effort. So, the court finds the billing rates charged by counsel are reasonable and notes that they're somewhat excessive in respect to preparation for the oral hearing and the drafting of the cost submission. Two counsel appear to have spent an entire day each preparing for oral submissions, which lasted less than 30 minutes, and more than 10 hours of counsel time in preparing the cost submission. Some of the latter time could more properly have been incurred by a lower billing law clerk or junior associate. It is on this basis that I have reduced the amount claimed by the respondents. Therefore, the plaintiff shall forthwith pay $15,886.70 to the defendant in respect to this bail refusal motion. Now, and this was a note here, this one does not have the same order that is payable personally. And so what that means is that it's actually the client who's on the hook for this. So the client has to pay $15,000 for that. which is rough, right? Because if I'm the client, I'm probably not very happy right now. But I mean, that's kind of how litigation goes. I suspect that this is, I would say that this is the end of this matter, but it's not the end because there's going to be another trial, so there'll be proceedings with that. But I suspect we're also going to see some law society disciplinary proceedings around this, particularly given the language the court chose to use about this, noting that this was, egregious, that it was, affected the administration of justice, these kinds of things. So, however bad your day is, be glad you're not these two, because they just got ordered to pay $100,000 personally. Now, the good news is that on the webpage they brag about having a sports car. They brag about having, a race car. So maybe that race car could be sold. And I guess if they don't pay up the $100,000 right away, then maybe Sobeys could say, hey, you know what? We're going to claim the race car. I don't know who owns the race car technically, so maybe that's real or not, but it would be funny if Sobeys ended up owning the race car out of this. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I wanted to share this one with you because we got half the story, and I wanted to make sure you got the other half of the story. Plus, it's spicy. The court was really coming down hard. That's about as strong language as you can see in the court, and I've never had a ruling describe me in those kinds of ways, and I arranged my entire life to make sure that I never do. So thank you guys for watching. If you found this to be interesting and educational, please like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to see more content. I also want to thank my Patreon supporters at the $50 level, the CCFR, Cannabis National Farm Association, Canadian City Sports Association, and Lend for the Elk, as well as at the $20 level, Lindsay Metcalf, Larry Kalniak, Al Fox, Susan Coyne, Legal Litter, Cameron Johnson, Andrew Elsick, Vicky, and Justin Bain. Thank you as well to my $10 supporters for being following me for following. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this knowledge. Thank you.
Can be monetized or it can be mobilized in order to. Now that framing isn't necessarily one I would ordinarily gravitate to, but that's the one that is available to. That is a tokenism of our culture. That's the paradigm that we are offered. So I suppose that's the one that many of us inevitably pursue.
You have the emotional sentiment towards that young man's circumstances as we look back on what the situation he was in, what he was experiencing. He's got this for 5 days. I mean, people happy for him, people anything for him.
Latterly, due to the principles of recovery, due to the fact that I have mentors, I have peers, I have people that look to me for guidance, I have service, I have duty, responsibility. Latterly, Stephen, I come to feel incorporated with that bit for me. But if you'd spoken 10 years ago, I felt I would like to have been referred to. I wouldn't have liked that spectre to have risen, a phantom I'd happily put aside. But now, like that little boy like hopefully the little boy that you described down there in Plymouth of all places, that famous rock from where they depart across the oceans, that personal Mayflower journey, he's with me now. I love him. And he is a great asset when I'm dealing with young, vulnerable, broken people. When people tell me that they want to end their own lives, when people tell me they self-harm, when people tell me they want to kill themselves, that they can't cope with life, they don't feel that they're good enough, I'm not saved. I can stay 100% present with that. And that is a great gift, no?
Was there, I think about this a lot myself, was there another path there where you were?
Yeah, probably, mate. Probably. I mean, look, you've met, like, you've met a lot of people. I know a lot of people.
But for me personally, I'll just tell you why I asked that question. I believe that I had a belief that was ill-informed by the society I lived in. And I believe I had to pursue that belief to find out that I was wrong and have to fail me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it happens now. Now it has happened. So the answer is 100%, of course, absolutely, indefatigably. This is the reality that was designed for you internally, that your consciousness is creating this reality. This reality is not coming externally at you. This consciousness is unfolding from within you in the moment. Where else could it be? Where else could it be? But potentially limitless alternatives, potentially unbridled possibilities.
And for you think you could have become the man that's like Anthony now or via a different pathway?
Yeah, but also no. What I suppose I'm saying is I accept the path that I've walked and that I'm sort of continuing to walk. And I suppose anyone that's engaged in the process of recovery has to, as a part of that, accept the various chapters, episodes that have led to that. I mean, I think that's part of self-acceptance. Part of self-acceptance is to appreciate and understand the various steps that led you through what. And just again, I think to reiterate that's why I mentioned addiction and recovery early on, because it provides you with access to an archetype. So this is who I was. This is the way that I live. This is the way that I try to handle the challenges that life gives you: impermanence, temporality, death, inequality, hypocrisy, destruction. All of these things that sort of are pervasive, whether that's cultural or simply part of being in a temporal and spatial reality. Recovery gives you a different set of tools, a different way to deal with those same challenges, which, for want of a better word, I will call spiritual, a spiritual solution to what I regard now as a spiritual problem. And once again, tagging that idea of connection to help us set up this conversation.
Spirituality as a form of connection. When a lot of people are put off by the term spirituality, it sounds a little bit exclusive and a little bit kooky. But I would class myself now as being spiritual. But thanks in part, I have to say to my partner, who is a breathwork instructor, and I met him, in Bali and so on. But one of the quotes I love from you is, like many desperate people, I need spirituality, I need God, or I cannot cope in this world. I need to believe in the best in people. Since I've become spiritual, I've found that it's easier to be alive. Spiritual. What is that word?
Spiritual literally means not material. That's what it means. It's not observable or measurable. The problem perhaps that we have nowadays is that we live in a quantitative reality where all things are measurable, where all things are predicated on rational principles. But all of us know what love is. All of us know what intuition is. All of us know, as C.S. Lewis beautifully outlines in Mere Christianity, when we have transgressed against some moral code that appears to be instilled in us, and in spite of the advocacy and campaigning of evolutionary biologists, seems to appeal to some nuministic tendency, nuministic meaning, simply a sense of awe, a sense of oneness, a sense of glory, a sense of glory you might experience at sunrise or sunset, or looking into the eyes of a loved one or even a stranger and knowing that the connection is real, knowing that the unitive force is real, and that somehow this connection implies a set of ethics, morals and principles. It's not just, oh wow, God is one, let's lose ourselves in some hedonistic revelry. So pleasure is not an end point. That service is our way of acknowledging this unity. So spirituality for me is a survival technique. You won't get very far in this world without it. And if you don't have it in a declared, explicit, and I don't mean doctrinal way, I mean personal, but somehow connected and communal way, you will try to create God. You will try to create spirituality from your preferences. Your preferences will become your God. I prefer it when people talk to me like this. I repel this. My aversions and my preferences will become my religion. And this is, I'm capable of that today. If I don't, I'm lucky to be such a craven, mad smackhead. And it's nice to walk around the streets of Shoreditch where I have news, where I've scored, where I know the back streets of Brick Lane, where there are enclaves, where they serve up Muslim men wearing full regalia that would never deal with that kind of business. It's against the Quran, but serve it up to slip down them rack money, to see it trace across the silver page, to lose myself in smack world, and to come back here now with a different way, a different way. The city has changed and I've changed, and no man crosses the same river twice, and no man visits the same Shoreditch twice, because the man is different and Shoreditch is different. I was looking for the same thing then. But when I was looking around then for snaps and cracks and all of that, I was looking for things that I'm looking for now. And if I'm not very rigorous in my spiritual practices, and they're simple, sort of simple, I know I can use a lot of long words, it's a thing I like doing, I get off on it and stuff. But spirituality ain't complicated. My nan's better at it than I am. My mum, my wife, they're all better at it than I am. They do it natural, because they're not like mobilised by this sort of primordial yearning that can become my fuel. It ain't no easy task to turn all that gunge, that swamp gunge, that Neolithic jet fuel into love of one another.
There's people now that are living a life where, including me probably in many respects, that are using preference as our God.
Yeah.
It's not that simple.
Well, because I thought, is there chlorine in it?
Really?
I just wondered.
What is it?
Water.
Water, okay. I don't think it's common. I hope it's not. Those people that are choosing preference as their God now, that are living a life maybe where materialism is their saviour. What is, I don't know, a couple of questions I have here. The Russell that was in Shoreditch for other reasons once upon a time, and the Russell that's in Shoreditch now, you said that they were both looking for the same thing. What was old Russell finding, and why wasn't the things he found as good as the things he finds now? I.e., what is the outcome of those that are choosing preference as their God? Like, why is that such a bad thing? What is the long-term or short-term consequence?
Well, I wouldn't suggest that there is but one path. As they say, as Krishnamurti says, truth is a pathless land. We've got to find it ourselves. But that said, there are templates, paradigms, conditions, and practices that might help us. So I'm not making a judgment on anyone else's path. My spirituality is not about you should be doing this and you should be doing that. My spirituality is I should be doing this. I should be doing this. My morality is about my conduct. If someone else wants me to judge them or help them or guide them or aid them and I'm able to, then it's my duty to do it. But what I would say is, if you are using impermanent means to achieve a permanent solution, you can only fail. If you are mistaking the vehicle for the self or the essence of the self, you can only fail. If you have not interrogated who is this in here, what is this subjective experience that only I am having? How do I deal with the tension of the paradox? And remember, all energy comes from polarity. All energy comes from polarity. That I am infinitesimally small to the point of being absolutely irrelevant in a cosmic framing, and yet all reality takes place solely, as far as I know, within my consciousness.
Quick one before we get back to this episode. Just give me 30 seconds of your time. Two things I wanted to say. The first is a huge thank you for listening and tuning into the show week after week. We need to like all of us, and it's really a feeling we absolutely never had. We couldn't have imagined getting to this place. But secondly, it's a dream where we feel like we're just getting started. And if you enjoy what we do here, please join the 24% of people who watch this channel regularly and have hit that subscribe button. It means more than I can say. And if you hit that subscribe button, here's a promise I'm going to make to you. I'm going to do everything in my power to make this show as good as I can, now and into the future. We're going to deliver the guests that you want me to speak to, and we're going to continue to keep doing all of the things you love about this show. One of the things I thought a lot about recently, you mentioned the God in your belly, or that person, or that signal in your belly that's trying to tell you how you feel. And we've all become so phenomenally good at tuning out of that and tuning into the kind of external how you feel, like how you should feel based on the job or type or status that you have. And this is a stronger noise and signal now than this one. Your life has been this, we talked about mentors as well, your life has been this amazing journey from chapter to chapter to chapter, as this person described as transcendence. The question I'm getting at is like, I'm thinking about someone right now that sat in the city and they feel like shit at a deeper level. But they've gotten so good to listening to their mother's opinion of them becoming a stockbroker that it's almost hard to hear that feeling of I feel like shit. How do we go on the journey of changing? How do we get there?
Well, typically, Stephen, the journey begins with a departure from home into feeling. Whatever home is, you have to leave. You have to leave the familiar, the place that you're familiar with. So often this is induced by crisis. A crisis that you cannot avoid or delay or defer. A crisis of some kind may come. Of course, this can be an inner crisis, a moment of despair. Often, a psychic breakdown can precipitate change, transition, awakening. I suppose what you have to, or one way that you can do it, this is the way that I would do it, or that I have done it, is firstly to acknowledge the problem of my condition, to admit there is a problem, and that my life has become unhealthy. These are not my ideas.
What are the signals of that?
Unhappiness,
Yeah.
sadness. Like in a sense, that's about one thing that's good about that is you're trusting your personal integrity. It's not like, oh, you're delirious. Why are you not happy? Why is this not working for you? Problem, unmanageability. You're sad. I'm using the example you use. Someone in a city holed up, left with a familial and cultural conditioning that has left them at odds, maladjusted to a maladjusted world. One, there's a problem, life is unmanageable. Two, you've got to believe it's possible to change. If you don't believe it's possible to change, you will never be able to marshal your inner resources towards making that change. One way that this change can be made is through mentorship, even if that mentorship is in the abstract. Even if you've just chosen, hey, this person seems to be able to have done that. He says that he used to feel weak, inferior, incompetent, impotent, and he says now that he doesn't feel those feelings. So maybe if I do what they did, maybe I can change also.
Mm-hmm.
So this. And the third component, first one, acknowledgement of powerlessness. Second one, belief change is possible. Third principle, it will not come from the same map and rubric that you've been running on up till now. You're going to have to import new ideas. You will need help. That help I would offer you might be of a meditation, humility, to ask for something greater than my individual wants, my individual preferences, not just some wish list passed up to the cosmic Santa.
Wish list passed up to the cosmic
Acknowledgement that
Santa.
there is a requirement for growth. And indeed,
That's
that I'm no
great.
longer prescribing what outcomes I want.
Very
It's
good.
curious. There are often paradoxes in this. So for me, mate, is like first you admit the powerlessness and the nature of the problem. Second, I believe it's possible to change. And I base that on, hang on a minute, these people used to have that problem and they've changed. So what if I do what they did? Then maybe my life will change. These are all things derived from 12-step ideology. The third thing is accept someone else's plan, accept someone else's help, surrender. Because in the end, this is, I think, perhaps the hardest contradiction, at least I find it a very hard contradiction to live with, this idea of activated surrender and a return to the original condition. Activated surrender. Russell is no longer in charge. Russell is a servant. There is a master.
Hey,
I'm
I
the
get
service
like
of this.
the
Now,
metaphorical aspect of yes.
I'm saying
Totally,
that
I
if
get
you
it.
envisage a benign and loving mother or father. rather than
However,
authority,
I'm a fucking
if you
adult.
do consider authority to be mostly malign, I could not identify more strongly. My distrust and my dislike of authority is a deep, deep fuel in me.
Yeah.
I do not like being told what to do.
Nobody
I do not
tells me
like
what to
it.
do.
It is a big, big part of my religion. I have to stop myself reflexively doing the opposite of what I'm told if someone's speaking
Yeah.
authority.
Even if it's at my own
someone asks me
detriment.
to help them, I will do my level best to help them. If someone difficult indeed not to do the opposite. Anarchist calisthenics. Break rules every day just to remind yourself that you belong to something higher than a set of systems.
No,
potentially
I am
imposed
higher.
by a malevolent force.
Step 3 there, you referenced the first time, was about running basically a new instruction manual for your life. Like accepting, because the current instruction manual is clearly not producing the results you seek. So a new instruction manual for your life. And my brain went, but how do I know which one to pick? Because there's many temptations for a new path forward. You know, there's I could join a cult in Arizona, or I might seek meaning and surrender in another wrong place, from my preferences to something even more destructive. How do we know? How do we know what
Which
new
religion's
instruction
the right
manuals are in our lives
religion?
when we find ourselves in such a situation? I'm thinking again about that person who finds himself in a job because
You'll
their parents
never
told them
find
to
it.
go and get that job, and now, or they're
Because
working in a
it
job where they
doesn't
feel
exist.
like
It's
something
not
is wrong.
real. It
They
is
admit it.
this crazy
one.
fucking concept of people's
Step
comfort
2 is they
level.
seek out mentors to provide evidence that
And
it's possible to leave the
It just really
situation.
depends on how much
And
the
then
people
step 3
around
is
you
this idea
don't
of
actually
surrendering
give a
and
shit
running
about
your
you
instruction
because
manual.
they are willing to
Where do I find that
adjust
instruction manual?
to
Is it
your
from my
comfort
mentors?
level.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yes, possibly.
To
Yes.
me, that's somebody who does
Quite
not
right,
give a shit.
yeah. Because I feel we're in a crisis of authority. Most people don't trust the government. Most people don't trust the media. Many people don't trust the judiciary or state authority. And I would have to.
It doesn't really
confess
matter
that
when my
I'm
neighbor's
trying to
also
agree
fucking
with
putting
my
rules
views
on me.
true
Like,
crisis of
I'm not
authority.
fucking listening to
Who
nobody.
indeed would you trust to say, I will do what is right? I will do what is right
Yeah,
for you,
exactly.
what is right for the community, and trust that they are speaking on behalf of a set of principles that could be somehow universal and truly valued. How I have handled this is I've been fortunate enough through crisis and despair to find myself primarily connected to a group of other people the same as me who cannot cope with reality unless they drink or use drugs. And those people provide me with a
Cope with
paradigm
reality,
and
bro.
a program. And I like
What?
that word program because it's both a sort of very old-fashioned word, but also an ultra-modern word in terms of, software, for example. Thanks, yeah. And I guess at some point
Tips,
we're going to have
Russell
to trust
Brand.
ourselves. But when embarking on this journey, it's not easy to lean into intuition, and it isn't easy to trust others. I find trust very, very difficult. I don't know about you, mate. I don't know what kind of experiences you had there as a young man in Plymouth. But for me, trust ain't my go-to. That's not my go-to. It takes me a little while. My strategy is do not put yourself in a situation where you require trust,
To be like, oh,
because maybe people are going to let you down bad. Maybe.
don't be an
Maybe
asshole.
the systems of authority, be they educational, legal, judicial, maybe they're going to let you down. Maybe
Vertical one day left that.
I
So
do these things.
I remember it. I recognize it in your story, but that I don't have the same level of. I'm skeptical. I require evidence to accept things,
Nice.
some kind of subjective or evidence, but I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm distrusting. Broadly, or maybe I am to some degree.
What is
Maybe my skepticism is that, yeah.
It's a critique, it's an analytic, it's a perspective of until you know.
But your problem with your challenges with authority that are clear in your story through school and institutions, all these things. Where does that come from in you? That what is, and how would you describe it?
Well, now I would describe it as a very deep love of God and a great deal of respect for other people's individual liberty and freedom, and the idea that any central authority would impose that without clear consent achieved through democracy and community dialogue seems ridiculous to me. But obviously, it's biographical and interpersonal. That the circumstances of my life have shown me that the people, one way or another, that are in positions of authority on the various scales of authority that most people encounter, familial, social, educational, have not been able to fulfill the duties requirement. Of course, as a person that's a certain way down the path now, because in the words of Philip Larkin, they in their turn were fucked up too. But We are just part of a long lineage of people coping with broken systems. And I would say from agriculture onwards, systems of aggregation, centralization, accumulation that can't enshrine the rights of the individual, except for a certain set of individuals, that we are living in a system that's about centralizing power and increasing authority, diminishing individual freedom, using whatever rhetorical tricks are required, safety, convenience, whatever is required to achieve this centralized authority. Now, so I now feel, like you said before, how there are other ways that you could have ended up being this man in this chair. Now I am glad that I've been deeply schooled in mistrust of authority, but it's almost like it burns in me. I can tell. Watch them. Watch what they're telling you. Watch what they're telling you. I give it to my own children, and I hope I'm not doing them a disservice. Question authority. Question.
Absolutely.
Question.
You're not
And
allowed
of course,
to
this
fucking
makes
ask
bedtime
questions.
difficult because
Then-
there's the person. Schooling, because institutions have an inertia. Institutions have a tendency.
When
They
you
might start
fucking
off with, we're
can't
going to educate these kids
give
to
you
be
an
creative
answer,
individuals,
then
but in the end, it's going to be about health and safety. In the end, it's going to be about fire drills. In the end, it's going to be about a set of a bureaucratic enmeshment and maze that prevents individual freedom. The great David Graeber, God rest his soul, though he was a communist, so he maybe wouldn't thank me for saying that. David Graeber says that one of our great dialectics against Soviet communism, for example, was that they were bureaucracies that prohibited individual freedom. But look at the bureaucracies we live within now. How do they solve the problem of spying and stealing your data? Just make someone tap, I agree. Don't stop spying. Continue to spy. Continue to accumulate the data. Just tap agree. You agreed to be spied on. This is bureaucracy. These are the observable tendrils and symptoms of a centralized authority that is not necessarily sentient, occultist, or overtly corrupt, but a tendency to accumulate power, to dominate resources that is plainly observable in the geopolitical dramas that play out in our time, the ecological crises, and the evident main stage players that occupy our current time, that many of whom have not been elected to get there. I'm talking about unelected acronym organisations that have great influence in the world today. So the reason I don't trust is not, I love my mum and dad, Ron Brand, Babs Brand. If I'm like today, sat here in Shoreditch as an adult man, I wouldn't just walk around Essex and go to find some couple of working class kids and say, why don't you and you take responsibility for my spiritual development?
Yeah.
They did their very best they could, and I couldn't love them more. But my mum, she had cancer like 8 times in a few years.
Wow.
My dad, he's got his own deal. And I recognise what it is to feel strong, individualistic fervour. I love them. When I'm trying to formulate, and I know I'll make errors as a parent, of course I will, we all do, and as you will discover, it is our duty to wound our children. It's not our duty, it is a necessity, beyond a duty, it is a tendency. It's just they're gonna end up wounded. They have to. They're gonna have to
Yeah,
find a
'cause
second
otherwise they're
mother,
fucking
a
weak.
second father. They're gonna have to. So, it's not anybody's fault. It's not even the system's fault. I'm kind of grateful for all of it now. I'm grateful to these institutions. I'm grateful to the mainstream media. I'm grateful to these governments. I'm grateful that they have set out the instruments required for the change that we will encounter in the coming few decades.
You mentioned your mum and your father again there. Your
Never
father,
better.
what
I have a
impact
house. We live
was
here.
did his departure have, do you think, on hindsight, on your relationship with authority, if any at all?
I would say fatherless men, like, I don't want to be so solipsistic as to make this entirely about me, he says, 20 years into a career.
Yeah.
But I think who I deal with a lot in my fight and mentoring and recovering mutually in support community. Fatherless men feel a big burden, and they do not feel safe in this world. A big burden, not safe in this world. If they're with the mother, I think they feel it's their duty to look after the mother. If they are out, God, who knows what kind of chaos. And I'm not saying
I'm starting a party going.
I'm already talking about subject. I'm talking about subject people that become drug addicts and alcoholics in order to deal with these kind of challenges. But also I know people that don't identify as addicts in exactly that way. And still the absence of the father And that also, by the way, could be through death, or it could be to break up a relationship, or it could be because the father doesn't have the emotional lexicon to connect.
Yeah.
One way or another. Because I can think of examples top of my head of all of those. I think it feels that you are prematurely invited to be a man. In fact, when I was thinking about our interview, Stephen, you'll be glad to know I thought about you before I met
Thank you,
you.
Russell.
I felt the significance of anthropology, the significance of what the original condition might be. I do not use these terms to suggest there is some one template that could be imposed and stamped upon everyone. I would never take away people's individual rights or struggles, particularly those connected to obvious and evident civil rights, cultural and identity issues. Those are their stories for them, and I support them in those stories. But when it comes to how human beings might have lived for hundreds of thousands of years, it appears we do well when we are a connected unit that communicate together in order to
On the
achieve
counter.
a common goal.
On the counter.
Time and time again, when anthropologists, contemporary psychologists study these forms of society, they discover that there are rights
You're welcome.
creation, often it appears, based on what I have heard, and as you know, I'm not an expert, there's a particular emphasis on male initiation, as the body is not so uniform in the way that it informs a boy that it is a grown-up now, not a child anymore, and that there are new duties to be undertaken. One of the best examples I ever heard, and I feel I see somewhere in Boy, or maybe Joseph tribe, that what they do, and I think they're doing this now, I figure, I don't know, I'm putting this stuff together, you know how it goes. But the boys at a certain age are dragged away from their mother, and they make much of it. They wear masks, the men of the village. All the men are part father, all the women are part mother, forms of identity too, which they honour and revere, often in the form of the shaman, who is beyond gender identity, incorporating both. You see reflections of this to this day, even in monotheistic faiths, where the priest wears what appears to be neutral or androgynous attire, distinguishing them from the rest of the community, yet honouring them and revering them.
And you went through that initiation way too early. In your own life, you say that you were prematurely forced to be a man because you've got the duties of care over your mother.
I'm
A young
gonna
age,
keep
your father,
telling you, but
he's
you gotta
six
stop
months
being so
old.
paranoid.
And then the
You're
other
gonna
thing
scare
that
me
happens,
away.
it feels horrible.
It's
stuff
cool.
because your mother has
It's all
cancer.
jokes.
And she struggles with it for many, many years. So you've got this young boy, and I was thinking about this when I was doing the research for this conversation. You've got this very young boy who's struggling with a lot of things on his own, disconnection coming from all angles, and then the stability in his life gets the uncertain horror of cancer come into her life, and what that does to that young boy who's already destabilized in sense of like connection. These are all interpretations I have from reading a piece of paper. You know, if I'm just being honest, I was putting myself in those shoes and saying I've got this stable figure, all this instability over here, and then this becomes unstable.
Yeah, it's good analysis. But, really, my mother's struggles, them her struggles, she had to go through that, and bravely she's done it, what life force that woman has in her. And to pick up on a point within your question, you cannot fake being a man or a woman or an adult, let's say, a word that doesn't have any cultural load to bear. You can't fake that, or you can fake it.
I can never just paint when I decide I want to paint something. There's who does things like taping and then painting over the tape.
You need a code. You need to know it's about duty and responsibility.
I would have never done all this if my paint didn't literally peel off of the wall and onto my roller and then doesn't come off.
Kids, because if I met them now, that's what they were as kids, a couple of years older than me.
I would not have done any of this if it weren't for my shitty paint being too sticky, so the old paint rolls off the wall and sticks onto my roller.
You'll create your own one. You'll create your own little community without elders that are reliable and trustworthy and dutiful and understand the nature of sacrifice of themselves in order to perform their duties. So of course, yes, I feel like when you feel the incumbency of adulthood upon you early due to the conditions of your domestic trial there, you will have to, as they say, man up or woman up. You'll have to, but it won't be real because it can't be real because it's not only a set of endocrinal imperatives, it's also a system of instruction as laid out in that, as laid out in the previous anecdotes, the Campbellian analysis of the anthropological conditions of that Aboriginal group there. So really, until you find other adults, elders, that are like, I know what I'm doing, you don't need to worry, I'm stronger than you, it's going to be okay, I'll look after you, it's all right, do this. But, a father is, you're going to forego this now, because in the future, this. Without that, you will not forego. You will consume now, you will not understand your role. So it's kind of, I don't think it's wrong. I've said it before, Stephen, I'll say it again, so there's your opinion. Thou shalt worship no other gods than me, because otherwise you will worship them gods. You will worship pleasure, money, fame. Them gods are greedy little gods too. They're easy little deities to start worshipping. And the problem with the worship of those gods is you lose the principle of the divine, the interconnectivity. That pleasure is not the result, pleasure is a byproduct. Pleasure is an inadvertent byproduct, to God, of doing the right thing.
I was just thinking then, as you're talking about all of that and the gods we choose to worship and young men and fatherlessness, I was thinking about the Andrew Tate one as a form of, he really seems to have captured a huge amount of young men for some reason. And trying to diagnose why that is a very multifaceted process, isn't it? Because there's elements of purpose and meaning and having a figure in your life that can guide you, can initiate you into what being a man is, that it seems that young men are in search of.
Yes, I agree, no doubt. One of the challenges it feels like we have culturally is we are unable to observe the difference between symptom and cause.
Yeah.
Symptom and cause. And obviously, as with matters medical, cause is what we must analyse. Cause is what we must understand. There's no point saying you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. If you have a set of values that are pretty simple, I call them Sesame Street values, kindness, love, service, that's going to take care of a hell of a lot. If you have kindness, love, service, it's going to take care of a hell of a lot. Are you being kind right now? No. You've gone off track, mate. You've gone off track, you're not being kind. Are you being of service? No. Then we can maybe sift through different. Also, we live in such a curated space that it's difficult to discern what people are actually angry about sometimes. What is it? As one of my great teachers says to me, what is it? Don't get caught up in the phenomena, the epiphenomena, the distractions, the static. What is it that you're trying to understand? What is it you're trying to do?
All of these groups then, people that are big fans of Andrew Tate, people that are radically left, people that are radically right, what is it that they are seeking or that they are getting from such a radical pursuit?
Well, a argument might be that we are recognizing that there is nothing in our evolution to suggest that we live in cultures of 300 million people who live by one ideology, that we have to truly respect diversity, that we have to acknowledge that many of our most influential and powerful systems do not have our best intentions in mind, that they in fact benefit from ongoing cultural conflagration. If we can do one great service in this cultural space, I recognize that part of your goal and your mission is to awaken latent potency in individuals in honor of your own journey, and it is a great mission, if I may say. But part of this mission must be for us to learn this simple lesson. We have more in common with one another than divides us, and it is our duty
To be honest,
to reach out in particular to the people we disagree with in a spirit of love and good faith. Firstly, then, identify. Oh, am I reaching out in good faith to people I already agree with?
honest,
No. That's not it. Disagree with. I disagree with that. on this important hot button topic of guns or pro-life, pro-choice, or identity or tradition or progression. I disagree with them, and I respect your right. I respect and I love you. And I know that I do not know what you know. But I am not God. I am not God. I do not know. I do not have any authority over you. But I believe that together we can achieve a consensus. And this consensus must be founded on good faith. We must allow one another to communicate in good grace and openness. We cannot yield to censorship, not because we want people to fill the air with toxicity and hate, but because we know that if we try to control it, who has the right? Who are we granting the right to now? Have you investigated any of these organizations? Have you investigated
The
their
first
funding, their affiliations,
I heard
their agenda, their imperative?
a conversation
Because
they were having.
I am sorry to report that I have, and I have found them wanting. They will not be getting my consensus or authority anytime soon.
At like
And I
4
will
o'clock in the
offer you
morning.
this. You have more in common with the people you are fighting with than those you most loathe. Whatever
About-
hue, persuasion, or a cultural garment you conveniently
About
strewn upon
if
them,
you can get
and the
away
people
with
that are
murder,
saying that they will
would you
protect
do it?
The institutions that are saying they will protect you.
And then something
Yes,
about
God is real.
impulses and
You're optimistic that
flipping
we'll get to a place
your
where
boss's
we
desk
recognise that
when he's
similarities
chewing you
are
out?
greater than our differences.
Yes.
And so if I make Russell Brand, I don't think this is a different role you want, but if I make you Prime Minister or President of the world, how do you systemically change things to help us achieve the
I
objectives
pictured
you described in
5
connection,
middle-aged men.
kindness, and togetherness? What are the things? I've asked so many people this question, no one's ever wanted to answer it.
Well,
Because it's so big.
here I am.
Yeah.
Sitting in a circle
Bring
like that
power
70s show.
as close as possible to the people affected by it.
Drinking really
Default
bad bitch
to
beer.
Decentralization and localization
Like
wherever possible.
Budweiser.
Of course, this will not immediately yield perfection.
And doing
I have
bumps.
looked out of your window. We are not competing with perfection. We are competing with
Talking about
corruption. So, what
their washed up careers.
We want true democracy. All the values that people espouse are the values we should be practicing. They say the world does not need more people to believe in God, just for those of us that do to start acting like it. To start acting like you believe God is real. Redistribute the control of municipal facilities to those that are affected by them. Do not have water companies in the United Kingdom, like Thames Water, owned elsewhere in China or Canada or Kuwait or Qatar or wherever those facilities are held, have municipal facilities run by the community that is affected by them. I'm not talking about renationalisation, I'm talking about community. The community runs its water wherever possible. I recognise that there is some complexity when it comes to electricity, municipality, running roads, running hospitals. But who among us has ever been into a hospital and not marvelled at the beauty, the compassion, the ingenuity, the commitment, the devotion of the people that work there? Wouldn't it be better if the people that clean the floors in the hospital felt that they were invested in it, that it was their hospital, the nurses that were there, the doctors, that they have real power? that those are their
Apparently,
hospitals? Wouldn't it be better if both sides
my
of our political
social circle-
conversation, I'm talking about the United Kingdom right now, hadn't agreed already that privatization is the way to go and they're not going to do anything about it? I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with capitalism in its basic format of we create a product and the people want the product and look at that, we made a little bit of money. I'm talking about this gigantic metastasized
I connect the most with
monster
the old men.
devouring everything right down to spirit. We must recognize
There's
that
about,
centralized
5
authority is
years
coalescing most,
of
and this we must address. This we must
evidence
address. Whether it is financial, corporate, or state power,
of me
wherever it is
yelling
possible,
in my
we
car.
the people. We, the people,
Well,
those three
talking.
magical constitutional words, if they were listened to, if they were lived by, it's already there. The kingdom of heaven is spread upon the earth and man sees it not. It's already here. It comes from inside your consciousness. You awaken, you believe it's possible to change, you act like it's going to happen. That's how these things unfold. It's happened
That's shocked at
miracles of
nighttime.
transition and change, the great beauty of science and medicine and technology. when it is free
Because that's
from
what I
its
do.
tentacles,
I'm
when
an
it's
adult in
untethered
shock at
from the
nighttime.
mendacious objectives of a system that sees all things as dominion for materialization and commodity, when it is free from that, you will see the true genius of our scientists, the true genius capable in technology. If we can just address the model, if we can just have as an agenda an awareness that we are just on one little rock in infinite space right now, that we're all participating in this one infinite diversity, infinite individual freedom, infinite ways of being human. We must all take responsibility for becoming the person we're intended to be. And if you don't know who that is, you find someone who does, and you find a system and a program that can help you, and we'll all do our best together, and it's going to be glorious, glorious. But beyond glorious, it is necessary.
One of the things you said within there was about empowering nurses, for example, and cleaners in a hospital. And it reminded me of a study I read many years ago that showed nurses that were given ownership about the decisions within a hospital had higher satisfaction, there was less accidents, there was less accidents with misprescribed medications, there was higher retention.
Bad phone
They
anxiety
leveled out
sometimes.
The payment, the remuneration policy, so there was less unfairness in how people were
Why?
remunerated. All the standards of the hospitals went through because people were empowered, they had autonomy and control over their lives and work. My question, though, is about step one, because what you described there sounds like it's at the top of Everest. And sometimes when something feels like it's a long way away from where we are now. So I'm asking, what's the first pebble? What's the first domino that has to fall? What's the first thing that I can do as an individual to help us get closer to that world?
Well, firstly, Stephen, people climb Everest every single day.
Yeah.
They have to clear the litter from that mountain now. Once it was. And every time there is an epochal shift, every time we say, oh, it seems that the sun
Scare the
doesn't go
shit out of
around
me.
the Earth. It seems like the Earth goes around the sun. Oh, there are things that are smaller than atoms. It appears that these sub-particular phenomena that are so small it's even difficult to label them, exist in a unified field, that they are emanating, but somehow connected
Fuck
to.
the junk now.
I am speaking, of course, of quantum entanglement. If you're a charge of a particle thousands of miles away, the partnering particle will reverse its charge also. There appears to be some unitive force. But what I'm expressing is the most simple, practical, effortless we will ever yet undertake. It is merely the realization of the truth that we are individual, yes, but we are connected also. That there are Goliaths that have incrementally coalesced due to the progression of the great, sometimes unacknowledged revolutions, of the same as acknowledged agriculture, industrial revolution, technological revolution, that all of these have been undergirded by principles of dominion that might as well be feudalism. In a sense, there is no change at all, except for the individual change that you yourself can make. This is why I think people get a lot of traction when they say, look after yourself. This is part of it. Eat well, awaken, pray, meditate, recognize that it is normal to feel sometimes total despair and total despondency. Remember, all of these great journeys that we're describing, that you're fascinated with, began with exactly that. But the great we have been granted have shown us and told us, be the change that you want to see in the world, whether it's Al Gandhi or Al Malcolm X, people that are willing to give their life for what they believe in, because what they believe in is bigger than their life, and you're gonna die anyway.
Yeah.
You're gonna die anyway. The principles, this is eternity. That we can touch eternity in the moment. So it's not like woo-woo to say, meditate, wake up. This is changing the prima materia. It is the field of consciousness. This is, I suppose, what I'm advancing. Consciousness precedes matter. You have unique individual access to consciousness. You are online. You are on the grid. You are responsible for whether or not you believe this is possible. Nobody else can tell you what to do.
Exactly.
That is
So
your private
I'm my
opinion,
own
private
higher
domain.
power.
Be for now.
Why is
Whoever
that
you want to be.
comparing myself to Jesus?
Please do not relinquish that
Ridiculous.
life by not taking it now. For I tell you,
I
authoritarian
don't want to fucking be
forces
anything like that.
are
Fuck
abundant
asshole.
and abound. They are looking to colonize the very space of attention that exists right now, this moment. This is what is being colonized, attention, data. Data on what? You. The territory of the self. This is fertile. This is not nothing. It is not nothing to awaken to the reality of who you are in this very moment. That is not nothing to you.
quick one. As you know, Airbnb are a sponsor of this podcast, and I was actually in an Airbnb last weekend when me and my friends had a reunion in New York. And it's from staying in Airbnbs over the years that led me to start hosting my own place. I know friends of mine who actually Airbnb their own place in order to pay for the Airbnb they use when they're away on holiday, which is pretty smart. And maybe you stayed in an Airbnb before and thought, this is actually pretty doable. Maybe my place could be an Airbnb. It could be as simple as starting with a spare room or your entire place. You could go on an Airbnb and not even know it. Whether you could use some extra money to cover your bills or something a little bit more fun, your home might be worth more than you think. You can find out how much it's worth at airbnb.co.uk/host. Check it out, find out how much your home is worth, and let me know what you think. One of my team members had a question for you. I was just chatting to them about you, and they said, I really want to know how he lives on a day-to-day basis. Because I know
Fucker.
from your books and stuff, the Russell that roamed the streets of Shoreditch once upon a time. The Russell I see now is through the lens of YouTube, and I see him what looks like the countryside somewhere. He got some lights in the back. How do you live your life now?
I'm glad you've asked this because this is proper diary of the CEO stuff. Because this is actual scheduling. I have to live sort of like a monk, basically. I have to be conscious all the time. I have to be conscious about what I eat, otherwise I'll eat something stupid. I have to be conscious about what I say, otherwise I'll say something stupid. I have to be conscious about what I do. I have to familiarise myself with extremes. So I, thank you God, have access to hot temperatures and cold temperatures. I expose myself to them regularly, every day if possible. Do a lot of cold therapy. I get right in that cold. While I'm in that cold, I think this thing taught to me by Michael Singer, and anyone who's willing to watch Michael Singer stuff. The moment in front of you is not bothering you. You are bothering yourself about the moment in front of you. And I get very, very hot temperatures. And I think the same thing. The moment in front of you is not bothering you, you're bothering yourself at the moment in front of you. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because for me it wasn't natural to tangle like that. And I love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu so much. Colin Rogan actually was the first time I was to talk about that stuff. And I do that.
I am literally comforted constantly.
It's good for I think people
Like I live in a constant state of
discomfort, and that's consensual but sort of assertive. It's like kind of, I heard a YouTuber say, like dance actually, and it's very good for me, it really puts me in my body. It's not cerebral. I don't know about you, Steve, but I suspect you're the same. I am very intellectually oriented. I live in here. find it very easy to be self-obsessed and to get up and all that stuff. So things are put in my body. The body holds the key. The body, you've got a body. It's important, the body of Christ. It's very important to get in that cold water, very important to get into that yoga, very important, listen to how important and beautiful and connecting. So I do a lot of BJJ, I do a lot of yoga, I do a lot of other type of exercise, calisthenics, body weight type stuff to try and stay fit. I've got young children, I have another child coming, I have to stay fit, I have to be able to be, God willing, present for these children going forward. And I love it, and it's what we're meant to do, we're animals. Again, this anthropological idea, how might we have lived for those hundreds of thousands of years that predate this great miracle of agriculture? How might we have lived? We work, we touch one another, we're socializing, we groom and we graze together. It's nice, like the kind of trust you develop with people in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, like the choke you to the point of unconsciousness, but then when you tap, it's over, and this is something that you share between you. There's a trust in that as well as yes, trust. Good to embody the trust, to experience the trust, as they say. If you want to know if you can trust someone, and maybe it's difficult to seek out those kind of opportunities where it can play out, so much cosmically and practically.
Because I did a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu lesson or two, and that man could have killed me at any moment. I really knew he could have killed me. He had me tied up like a ball of elastic bands. I trusted him. I didn't know this man.
It's lovely, isn't it?
There's something amazing about it, and it's an instant bonding that this man has his life in my hands. Yet he's teaching me an art form, he's teaching me a discipline, and holding literally my life in his hands. It's funny because I didn't know him, but I felt like he was my mentor, my father, my immediately after.
Yeah.
Because I trusted him so much in my life, right? So
absolutely. Touch very important for us late age creatures. That's why a hairdresser, you tell the hairdresser or the barber staff, this is why like in Strictly Come Dancing, they can't stop falling in love. They're performing these rituals that are designed to elicit certain states.
That's the vulnerability, isn't it? That's the connection.
The vulnerability, the touch, the awareness of sameness, like differentness, the acknowledgement that we are creatures, that we are embodied creatures. All of these things, I think, contribute to that. So for me, on my day, yes, every day prayer and meditation first thing. Every day, rigorously ensure that I've done things for other people, preferably without letting other people find out. I make myself available to other, in my case in particular, men that require help with their issues around addiction and mental health, that I have checked in with other people that I consider to be peers around the challenges that I face psychologically, that I don't take all my time obsessing with what I want. But that I have to do quite a lot to not be crazy. I have to do quite a lot to not be crazy. So the hot, the cold, the BJJ, the yoga. There's someone I work with who said every day I get up, I meditate, I pray, I do exercise, I do green juice, I do hot, cold, I attend a support group, and then I feel okay. Okay, that's what I get to feel if I do all that. Then I don't feel like a lunatic, a vacillating wild lasso of mad vicissitudes that could lash around anything in its search for connection.
Is there not another way at this point? This also is attached to another question I've often pondered from doing what I do here, which is about how, I mean, says Steve Peters, who's a psychiatrist, I believe, talks about these goblins and gremlins, and I spoke to Gabriel Mate as well. I know you've interviewed him, and I watched that fantastic, unbelievable guy, but I wonder if the traumas, the things that are hard, I use the word hardwired tentatively, but the things that are hardwired into us are ever overcomable. If we can ever take them to zero in terms of the power they have over us or influence we have over, or we will spend our lives managing.
I was taught from the womb comes the sound. From the womb comes the sound. The place of the deepest wound is provides your salvation. This is what you must investigate.
Feet.
It is not
work.
When people love you, we always feel it's because of their strength or the capacity or the virtuosity, but often it's the vulnerability and the fragility, because we all know that this vulnerability and fragility is something we share. This is what comedy is to me, Stephen.
We're talking about other tens of millions of dollars that went to new funding streams, new companies being created under funding agreements that were not according with the original funding agreement with the federal government. So, in my view, that raises criminality.
Welcome back from another perspective, everyone. I'm Cypher.
And I'm Fox. Today we continue our expose on the $1 billion slush fund scandal, which entails a government funding program via the Sustainable Development Technology Canada organization. If you haven't watched part 1 or 2 of this series, we encourage you to do so in order for you to have a context for what we're discussing in this video. You can find the links to those videos in the description.
In October of 2023, the third-party investigation into the SDPC that was being led by the third-party auditor, Raymond Chabot Grant Thornton, or RCGT as everybody's calling him, was finally released. It wasn't released to the public, it wasn't released to the whistleblowers, it was released to the government. In that report, the investigators found that significant amounts of government funding was being granted outside of the established rules of the SDPC that they are governed by. The report contained such terms like contravening, ineligible for funding, refractionable companies, organizations that they were not funding, and that conflict of interest policy was inconsistently applied. Now, despite those findings, Francois Philippe Champagne finds that there's virtually nothing to do. There's no consequences that need to be applied to the organization, nor the members of its board, who are appointed by Justin Trudeau. Nobody is fired and nobody's suspended. In fact, with the funding that goes from the government into the SDTC continues. Now, as we concluded in our last video, Michael Barrett earlier requested an investigation committee on October 4th, 2023. Michael Barrett submitted a letter to the Auditor General requesting a forensic audit of the SDTC as a result of the RCTT report. Almost a month passed while that motion was considered, and the whistleblowers, who had been waiting for almost a full year at this point for the Trudeau government to actually intervene, they had enough and lost their patience. Now was the time to cash in on their insurance. Almost as a direct rebuttal to the fact that Francois Philippe Champagne refused to take any action, the whistleblowers leaked the report by Dr. Conakry to the CBC office. The report said,
the very preliminary findings of the fact-finding exercise is that there is smoke around the vast majority of the allegations. We said we would believe you, now there's enough evidence to say that we really do believe you. And that means that the government is going to have to take action. There's a lot of sloppiness and laziness. There's some outright incompetence. The situation is just kind of untenable at this point. I think the minister is going to flip out when he hears this stuff, and he's going to want an extreme reaction to shut it all down. But it's unlikely that certain members of the board, or the entire board, and executive are going to be able to continue to sort of like they've kind of lost the confidence. So really the discussion will be the mechanisms for getting them out. First of all, we need to have control of the board in order to actually have a plurality of votes to want to go after the executives. So that's like that's the stuff that kind of machinations are figuring out right now. But it implicates the board in terrible ways, like by not following process, by not following the COI regime, by not being prudent fiduciaries. It's just a board failure altogether.
So we have the desired effect, as the Globe and Mail broke the news story with the scandal, the Conservative bulldog were unleashed on Parliament.
If I didn't have my accountant, the business would not exist.
Sage accountants are tools and insights to help clients to manage their business. Sage, helping business flow.
La toute nouvelle Subaru Solterra entièrement électrique.
After 8 years of rampant corruption being exposed at the Prime Minister's $1 billion Green Slush Fund and Sustainable Development Technologies Canada. A friend of the Prime Minister, who is chair of the board, has funneled millions of dollars to her company and even had executives pressure and mislead staff into approving millions more. Recent reports reveal that of a small sample of companies that received funding, 3 of them were ineligible, but they still received a staggering $53 million. The companies didn't need external reviewers recommended against funding them, but they got tens of millions of taxpayer dollars anyway. Because under this NDP Liberal government, insiders get paid and Canadians pay the price. Conservatives have alerted Canada's Auditor General to the corruption at the Liberal Green Slush Fund and have called for a full forensic audit. Canadians deserve answers because this Prime Minister, well, he's just not worth the cost.
Mr. Speaker, outright incompetence. That's how senior officials to the Prime Minister described the scandal around the $1 billion Green Slush Fund, $40 million of which is under investigation for suspicious payments. Leaked audio has been recently released, and you won't believe what a Liberal government official said about it. He calls the fund a sponsorship scandal level kind of giveaway. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, he is simply not worth the cost. The unholy alliance of the NDP and liberal spending, scandals, and corruption has now caused sponsorship scandal 2.0. The previous liberal sponsorship scandal began with an Auditor General investigation, and today we learn that the Auditor General is now investigating the taxpayer abuse at the $1 billion Green Slush Fund. Liberal corruption must stop. Common sense conservatives will finally clean up this mess.
Following that, Champagne announced that all new funding for the SDC, despite what it's suspected, and that the government has given the SDTC until the end of 2023 to implement the required reforms to its conflict of interest and funding policies. Karen Hogan, the Auditor General, decides to accept the recommendation of Michael Barrett and launches a full forensic audit investigation into the SDTC.
So what does that mean in full forensic audit?
So a full forensic audit is different than a normal audit. When a normal audit takes place, auditors come into an organization and they ask to see, typically, depending on the type of audit that it is, they're asking to see your processes that you use in your organization. Then they take those processes, make sure that they understand them, ask some questions about them, and then they start asking evidence related to those processes. And the audit is essentially to determine, are you actually doing what you say you're doing? Whether it's in finance, whether it's in marketing, whether it's in IT, but it's usually related to finance and your information technology department, because those are your most significant and high-risk departments that can have a very critical impact on the company if they're following the processes or not.
Oh, it's like that movie Office Space, where they came in and asked people about the jobs and stuff.
Sort of. Those were consultants trying to fire everybody. It was a little bigger. But they came in and they reviewed, and I guess you could say they audited all the departments and then made recommendations on how to actually find efficiency based on everything. So consultants come in and try to make recommendations on how to improve. Auditors typically come in and they are solely focused on, are you doing what you say you're doing? Now, a forensic audit is different. A forensic audit really digs deep into your accounts. So it will last a lot longer than a normal audit. A normal audit can last a couple of days to a few weeks to even a couple of months. A forensic audit can last years if it's extensive enough. But what they will typically do in a situation like this is they don't necessarily follow processes, although that's part of it. They follow money. And what they do is they will look at all the financial transactions that come into the SDTC from the government of Canada, and then they will follow every dollar, every penny. So that way they will know what money was paid out to what organizations, who was in the meetings that actually discussed said money to said organizations, who made the approvals, who made objections, and any recommendations that were raised during these meetings, they will then report on, who said them, were they followed, were they not, and what was the corresponding result. And then they will take all of that information and compare that against the SDTC's own internal policies and procedures, as well as the guidelines of the Government of Canada, as given the SDTC, as per the terms of their agreement. So one of the big pieces of that agreement is that they follow their conflict of interest policy. Meaning, if you are a business owner and you serve on the board of the SDTC, and you are responsible for funding to an organization, that if your organization ends up coming up for review, that you will most likely say no, my organization is not going to be reviewed, or you will recuse yourself from that decision. But that's the crux of it in terms of conflict of interest, and that's mostly what I think everybody is interested in this case. So at long last, the Standing Committee on Public Accounts begins their investigation into the $1 billion slush fund scandal and the SDPC.
I chose WIP for my business because of its massive scope for functionality and freedom of creation. Being able to integrate and change and develop at my own pace. I have a range of products and services. To manage it all from one place is essential. It gave me time back in my day to get going on actual projects. It really just made everything feel more achievable.
Hey, it's Tucker Carlson. Something big is coming. You probably feel it. Everybody feels it. The next 12 months is going to be a wild time, probably like nothing any of us has ever seen. An economic meltdown, an unresolvable presidential race, unprecedented global migration, entire population moving from continent to continent, the half the size of a foreign war, chaos. Their stake in both the world and of their souls. How are you going to respond to all of this? The first step is knowing what's actually happened. That's not easy. Who's an ally? Who's an enemy? You can't always tell. What's true and what's a lie? Sometimes it's hard to know. There's so much deception. Big media companies won't help. Their job is to manipulate you. The government? When was the last time you believed a word they said? Probably before COVID. We've been thinking a lot about all of
Ms. Jennings, I understand you have a brief state.
With them, the child spoke at a sentencing hearing for white nationalist Nathaniel Beltman, who drove out for a walk in June of 2021. The boy was 9 years old when his father, mother, sister, and grandmother were killed. The sixth grader who was killed in this week's school shooting in Iowa has been identified as 11-year-old Amir Jolev. Authorities say the child was shot 3 times when a 17-year-old student at Perry High School opened fire.
What?
The Israeli Legislature is preparing an investigation into failures connected with the October 7th Hamas attack that triggered the ongoing war against the militant group. An Army spokesperson says the investigation will include a look at the chain of command, decision-making, and former officials. Adding that the goal is to improve the Army and is not meant to replace any future external investigations. The Chief Justice of New Brunswick's Court of King's Bench has offered her sincere apology to 2 men who were acquitted after prison sentences for a 1983 murder. Did you ever think your wildest dreams of sailing would come?
No.
Robert Mailman and Walter Gillespie were formally declared not guilty on Thursday in the killing of George Gilman Lehman in St. John. A day later, Chief Justice Tracy DeWare is apologizing, saying the justice system failed them. The judge says the justice system owes a debt of gratitude to the 2 men and their legal team for steadfastly pursuing the case for nearly 4 decades. 80-year-old Gillespie served 21 years of his life sentence in prison, while 76-year-old Mailman served 18 years. And Joveski, the Canadian Press. The Royal Canadian Air Force plane that flew Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to Jamaica for a family vacation broke down earlier this week due to maintenance issues. It's still unclear what caused the problems, but the Canadian military had to send a second aircraft to the Caribbean island with a repair crew. The crew was able to fix the issue on Tuesday just in time for Trudeau to travel back on the original plane. The host of Sunday night's Golden Globes says he's ready to kick off award season.
After basically hermetically sealing himself off during the holidays, Joe Torre, ready to host the Golden Globes on Sunday night. The comedian says that pretty much ignoring his family during Christmas and New Year's. I wanted to make sure I was ready, prepared, and I didn't want to get sick. I didn't want to do anything. I've just been locked up in my house. Just writing. Hi, Barbie. Barbie, the top nominee of this weekend's show, followed by Oppenheimer. The Golden Globes are Sunday night on CBS. Jason Nathan, ABC News.
The Canadian Press. In sports, the Americans said they wanted revenge and they got it in front of a hostile crowd. The United States thumped host Sweden 6-2 in the gold medal game at the World Junior Hockey Championship. A former All-Star shortstop has been released conditionally by a judge despite facing accusations of an improper relationship with a minor.
A judge in the Dominican Republic has ordered the conditional release of Tampa Bay Rays shortstop Wander Franco. Franco is still facing allegations that he had a relationship with a 14-year-old girl and gave her mother a car and thousands of dollars in exchange for her consent, according to court documents obtained by the AP. The judge said Franco is allowed to leave the Dominican Republic but must return once a month to meet with authorities. Franco did not speak to reporters after the hearing ended. During a bathroom break earlier in the day, he briefed reporters that, quote, everything is in God's hands. I'm Kevin Kulba.
From the Canadian Press, I'm Brenda Molina Navidad.
Lions Ken Carter is in once again on a Monday morning for Andrew Carter. John Moore returned with entertainment and a chat at 7:20. So does Paul Mulcair, our political insider, making his return at 7:40. At 8:10, we'll speak with an interior designer about how you can design your home to make it happier. And the Cat Moves Prices Act will be next to win a 4-pack of tickets to the Montreal Auto Show. It all starts at 5 on the Andrew Carter Morning Show here on CJAD 800. When news breaks, be the first to know with CJAD 800. A shooting at Perry High School in Perry, Iowa, about 40 miles northwest of Des Moines, leaving one person dead. There appears to be 2 other people injured at the scene. Officials say the site has been secured. Get it first on Instagram and Twitter. Email to your inbox and on News Talk Radio, CJAD 800. After 8 critically acclaimed award-winning years examining the problems in a small Ontario town, the final season of a beloved critical original this year. Taking their 20% off of their bud. The final Letterkenny 6-pack of new episodes ever.
Been through together. We just want to say that you have our respect. We respect you. You earned it.
Who are you again? I don't even know what your names are. Letterkenny, the final season. Stream now. Only on Crave. Plan starting at $9.99 a month. Subscribe now at crave.ca. Why should I pre-arrange a funeral?
This is Mary Powlett from Keenan Fairley Funeral Home. Making a pre-arrangement cannot avoid experiencing grief, but it helps reduce the amount of decisions to be made when a family loses a loved one. I want families to feel comfortable and make informed decisions, so I invite you to reach out to me with no obligation.
Keenan Fairley, recipient of the Consumer Choice Award from 2021 to 2023. For information, call 514-481-5301 or visit keenfederally.com. There are all kinds of reasons a couple might be having trouble with intimacy. Men, especially, often feel like they're not up to the task of talking about it, that is. But that's the most important part. Talk about it with your partner and then book a consultation at elmasexualwellness.com. Help is available, always with respect and discretion, in the Cary Square and on Boulevard Saint Joseph in Gatineau. Take a break from your usual online activity and visit elmasexualwellness.com.
So many Quebecers suffer from back pain, which, when left untreated, can result in a loss of quality of life. The Quebec Chiropractors Association invites you to learn more. Visit chiropractic.com for more information about the practice. You can find tips and advice for daily activities and where you can find the chiropractor closest to you. Be well informed, prevent injuries, live your life to the fullest. Pain changes everything. Chiropractic care changes pain.
Silver and Gold for Cash will pay the best rate, guaranteed for all competition, and you'll receive cash or a check for your gold and silver on the spot. Go to Sancho Leonardo da Vinci Tuesday to Saturday 10 to 5 or silverandgoldforcash.com. This program is for entertainment purposes only. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of CJAD 800 or Bell Media.
From the heartland of America and the gateway to the West. Good morning, good evening, wherever you may be across the nation, around the world. I'm George Norrie. This is Coast to Coast AM. Later tonight, those open lines. Here's what's happening. Well, apparently Russia is utilizing North Korean-made missiles in its invasion of the Ukraine. We found that out. The National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby made that claim during a White House press briefing. Wow, what a mess. The U.S. labor market closed out 2023 in great shape as the pace of hiring was even more powerful than expected. December's job report showed employers added 216,000 positions for the month, while the unemployment rate held at 3.7%. Payroll growth showed a sizable gain from November's downwardly revised 172,000.
October was also revised lower to 105,000 from 150, indicating a slightly less robust picture for growth in the fourth quarter. John Truman Wolf with us, author of the 99 Strongest Banks in America. John, what does this all mean to us?
Well, George, Happy New Year to you, first off.
Thank you, sir.
Secondly, listen, the labor market has actually been strong for the last half of the year of 2023. There's a lot of political rhetoric out there, but the economy looks good for 2024, George. The equities markets are up, gold is up, cryptos are up. I think it's going to be a good year, George.
Well, does that sound good for Joe Biden?
Well, don't get me started on that guy. But yeah, it certainly won't hurt him. That's a fair point.
Interesting take on that list. And how do you see the rest of the, let's say, the next couple of years? Can you forecast that?
Well, the thing that's the big bug, George, is the fact that the national $32 trillion. George, the interest on the national debt is $1 trillion a year.
Oh, wow.
$1 trillion a year. This can't go on.
No,
And,
well, it's like we're kind
while
of
the investment markets look strong, I think this soaring debt is going to come back and bite us in the you-know-what. As far as the next couple of years, here's where my eyeballs go out about 6 months. I think they're going to be strong. After that, I think it's anybody's guess, and I think this steep debt market is going to hurt us badly.
Interesting take. Thank you, John. Talk to you soon enough. John Truman Wolf. Actor David Soul, best known for his role as Detective Kenneth Hutchison on the 1970s buddy cop series Starsky and Hutch, has died. He was 80 years old. Final preparations are underway at Cape Canaveral in Florida for a milestone mission to put a U.S. lander on the moon, an achievement not seen in more than 50 years since the end of the Apollo project. Last-minute glitches aside, Peregrine Mission 1, named after the fastest animal on Earth, will roar into the sky on Monday, fingers crossed, after looping around the planet. Will then head on to the moon and slip into lunar orbit before attempted landing soon after local sunrise on February 23rd. We'll keep our eyes on that. Here's Kevin Randall with his weekly UFO report. Lieutenant Colonel, hello, sir. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, George. How you doing?
I'm great. Looking forward to your report tonight.
Okay. Well, we all know that testimony gathered within hours of the event is probably more accurate than that gathered weeks or days or months later. Scientific research has proven this in various experiments. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus has shown how easily our memories of an event can be contaminated by simply attempting to remember exactly what happened or by several outside influences. I mention all this because of the ACRO files, which just became available to researchers, and has produced a unique investigative opportunity. In the material about the Hickson-Parker abduction of October 1973, David Mahler found recordings of the interviews of the two men made within hours of the abduction. These tapes include the sheriff's secret recording of the men taken within hours of the abduction, interviews with the sheriff made within hours of the event, and a hypnotic regression of Parker made on October 14th. This discovery could radically alter what we know about this case. Moving to more recent sightings, those of you who have been following my report know that I try to find sightings that last more than a minute. Anything less is open to misinterpretation. Mundane and terrestrial objects can appear sightings that last seconds. If the witness has a longer opportunity to watch the UFO, the better the chances it was something truly strange. However, on December 18th of last year, the witness in Kelso, Washington, reported watching a disc-shaped UFO for 30 seconds. The UFO was black, moving smoothly from side to side, and then flashed away. The witness said it was about 600 feet in the air and was traveling about 500 miles an hour. I'll caution that these estimates are probably not as accurate as they could be. According to the report on the National UFO Reporting Center website, the witness took a photograph that provided a second chain of evidence. The UFO was disc-shaped, black,
but seen through the branches of a tree and overhead wires. There is a third chain of evidence as well. According to the report, there was an electromagnetic effect and that animals reacted to the UFO. But this is an important case, and I'll attempt to follow up on the photographs on my website. Following also from the National UFO Reporting Center caught my attention for a couple of reasons. First, although I need to note that I worry about sightings that last for hours and worry about repeaters, meaning here that they saw the same thing the next night. The witness in Greensboro, North Carolina, said that at the beginning of December 12th of last year, he saw a bright, intense light hovering over the tree line. It was moving right to left for periods between the hoverings.
It's a fucking drone, you fucking spaz.
With what he described as tentacles hanging from it. There was some sort of blackness around the UFO, something like a cloud. He wanted to get a picture, but said his cell phone was dead. He did get another cell phone, but said the UFO
My cell phone is also
focus.
usually dead.
He couldn't get a good picture of it.
Does
He
not
did
mean
say
you
there
saw
was
UFOs,
additional witnesses, and one of them was on her way to work, and she said she saw the same thing, and there was a report of animal reactions to the UFO. In both these cases from
Well,
last
maybe
month, the
animal
reports
reactions,
of
they're fucking owners being retarded.
EM effect or a cell phone failure and a reaction by animals. These extra points add some credibility to the sightings. Both cases can be viewed on the National UFO Reporting Center website, and that's what we have for tonight, George.
All right, my friend, we'll talk to you next Thursday. That's Kevin Randall with his weekly UFO report. In a moment, demonologist Bill Bean joins us. His latest work is called My Life, Transformation from Victim to Victor. We'll talk about demons next on Coast to Coast AM.
It's different down under. It's absolutely extraordinary. So don't miss a moment. The Australian Open, January 13th to 28th. Subscribe now at tsn.ca/subscribe. Hi, Tom here from ResAV. You know Lutron is synonymous with world-class lighting control systems, but did you know they're also leaders in automated window treatments? Roller shades, drapery tracks, and horizontal shears can be motorized and automated to add to your home's decor, as well as protect furniture and floors from harmful rays, add privacy, and save on your energy bill. And the best part is that the motors are completely silent. Let us know if we can help. RESAV.ca. J.J. Cardinal Funeral Home is proudly family-owned and operated, having been in service to the community. Families and loved ones navigate some of life's most difficult moments. They offer pre-planning services, comfortable and spacious on site, as well as unique accommodation.
Let them all fucking die. Around 1880, 16 European squatters were expelled by who had to spend covering illegal fees of $28,000 in order to put a term to it. Also around 1889, a wood company did the same without any warrants. It took several years until Mohawks and or the government to react. May 26, 1890, the petition was signed in the presence of priests, Legionists, then in charge by some of them, 43 inhabitants of the Doncaster Township requesting the abolition of the Mohawk Reserve in the township. Honorable Sir, quote, Honorable Sir, us subsigned living in the Doncaster district are asking very humbly for you to use your utmost influence to make the savage reserve disappear from our district and to make a land survey. Fuck. Every time I see someone surveying, I'm gonna fucking hit them with my car. The reserve, which contains a large number of excellent land proper to agriculture, located in the middle of the occupied lands by a French-Canadian population annexed to our village, is observed as an anomaly, and all of them are hoping to see it disappear. Anyways, it can't be of any utility to the savages who will never come to install themselves since the games are lacking. That's not how life works. You don't just see something and be like, does this belong to someone? No, I'm going to take it that it's mine now. Well, you weren't using it, so I figured I could just take it. Also, the wood is being stolen from all sides. They're taking the wood, so the sooner it will be measures, fewer damages will be done. We are observing the reserve in the township of Doncaster is a big obstacle to colonization progress in our look. Like, this is literally from the fucking government website. Our municipality is suffering from it since the reserve contains about a third of the district. For these reasons, Honorable Sir, we hope that you will favorably accept our request and we won't stop praying that St. Lucie of Doncaster eat fucking shit. This is going in a fucking frame. Yeah, it's fucking disgusting.
Sighting for me of the new year took place on January 1st, and it was raining out. It was like a low ceiling in the sky, low cloud cover, and yet this object was under the cloud cover. It was in the eastern sky, and it looked like it was an electric blue type of color, and it hovered out there. I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. I watched it, and then I watched it. It was really strange. And I've seen this many times before. It was like it was weaving and bobbing around, and bounding, and it would go to the south for a second, and come back to the north, and just back and forth like that. And then it finally just headed away to the north. But I saw it clearly for several minutes, and it's par for the course, George. I mean, these things have been going on with me really since childhood. And I write about it in the new book called My Life's Transformation from Victim to Victor.
Are you like a magnet when it comes to UFOs?
I believe that I am, and I don't know why. I cannot tell you why. The same thing with this calling that God has put in my life to help people become free from evil. I don't know why, but I do know this. I believe it 100%.
Well, I believe that you believe it since you believe in
allowed
Jesus.
me to go
Obviously, you
through
believe in mythical
suffering that I
creatures.
did as a child and a young man in order to
Believe
have
in
the
the science of
experience,
UFOs.
so I could be where I'm at right now in helping people. I can be the most brilliant man in the world, but if I've never had the experience, then there's no way to come together with the victim. When people experience high levels of trauma, they don't just trust just anybody, and they don't just go telling their story to anybody and everybody. I mean, it has to be someone that they trust, that they can confide in, and then we can start to break the walls down, because now we've forged a bond. That's very much a part of what I do and how God works to help people.
What made you become a demonologist, Phil?
I didn't choose it. God chose me for it. As you know, and you've been there with me from the start of all this, when I was just a guy telling a story. I suffered horrific things as a child. My family was destroyed by demonic forces. I nearly was as well. And through it all,
Off with the fucking shit.
a miraculous transformation took place to where God not only saved me, but then transformed my life. And it took effort on my part as well. So I had an epiphany one day that because for many years, George, and we talked about this before, I was seeking death. I wanted to be the death warrior. I was seeking death, and I did not want to live anymore. And I lived my life on the edge for a very long time. And then one day I had an epiphany that I didn't want that life anymore, that I could do better and be better. And I decided, it was the greatest decision that I ever made in my life. I decided to make God first in my life, submit before Him, repent, and ask Him to help me. And He really did, and a transformation started to take place. Now, it wasn't instantaneously, because I know in my case, I had developed very bad behavioral patterns and habits due to the trauma and the all of the untimely loss of life, in my family, including my parents and other family members. I was very
My business notes.
very
when I was starting a business,
on an island, and it just
or I was looking to get loans. So I was trying to make
about wanting a
not a
better
portfolio.
way of life. And it was a process, George. It was 2 steps forward and 3 steps backwards. But once I got there and got on the other side of
No,
it,
but there's a fucking way to call it.
training to
peer-based
I'm
trauma
thinking bring the bank and be like, this is what I want you to give me for money.
I call warrior mode, which is things like encourage and
Yeah, business plan.
achieve that. And it's
Then there's
this
is the first copy for the SQDC. If you wanted to open a SQDC store, then it's basically like the requirements and all the things that you have to abide by.
Now, in your opinion, what is a demonic possession? What's your definition of that?
My best definition of that.
I went out every fucking night putting these up. I literally looked like the cat Rambo. Like I was like strapped with like treats and his favorite toys, and I'd like take like a new block.
I wasn't thinking of a cat.
I know you weren't, obviously, but like I printed so like these are. I went out every night for months looking for this fucking cat. And I would be like, Allie G, and like people would be like standing outside of their place smoking a cigarette, and then I'm just like fucking decked out with all this cat gear, and like Allie G, and people are just like staring at me like, what the fuck is happening? Like I was just so desperate to find this fucking cat. I love this cat. So this was before Stanley, and that's why when Stanley came around, I was like, I want him, and I was like, I was gonna make signs and put out signs to be like, I found your cat, come get your fucking cat.
Rather know it's super good.
But what?
Rather know it's super good.
Oh, it wasn't as good as yours, but
Wow, it was good. Lots of love in it.
hey,
Love you, baby.
I love you. On the table.
Huh?
On the table.
You want to share one?
Okay. Oh, this one's super good. When I was up north, I've been using matches.
Really?
Here. Oh, that was not intended. I don't think it works. Oh, it does. Look at that.
Look.
Barely. Oh, okay. So this is for the reserve up north. It's when we were looking into building a cabin there. It's all the rules. Like this is also so 6 European squatters were expelled. European squatters, natives that are on their own land, were expelled by government. This is literally. In 1890, the petition was signed in presence of priest Legenists, then in charge by some of them, 43 inhabitants of Doncaster Township, requesting the abolition of the Mohawk Reserve in the township. Quote, Honorable Sir, us the subside living in the Doncaster district are asking very humbly for you to use your utmost influence to make the Savage Reserve disappear from our district and to make a land survey. This reserve, which contains a large number of excellent lands proper to agriculture, located in the middle of occupied lands by a French-Canadian population annexed to our village, it is observed as an anomaly, and all of them are hoping to see it disappear. Anyways, it can't be of any utility to the savages who will never come to install themselves since. Quote from the town next to the reserve saying, hey, we don't really want the reserve next to us. Can you make them go? This is from the Canadian government website. This is not from Mohawks. This is from our own website. It's super, super sickening. Like, it's just like, I really wish I had some insightful, hopeful knowledge, but like, I don't see things getting better. Ever. I see it only getting worse because white people just have the tendency to be like, no, you don't know.
Like this.
Like, and they make it a point to be like, we don't put up fences. If you want, you can take some wood, you can make yourself a little thing, but like, they don't put up fences, they don't put up concrete, they don't fucking put cement, you have to get like approval for all that shit, like, and they don't actually have like lots or anything that are sectioned off. It's just this family has this space, and they just are able to manage somehow. Like,
Yeah, well, people that are to deal with it.
yeah, well, it's this concept of like when your boss takes a day off work, you still go to work, you still do your job, and if your boss every day, you would still go to work. You just
Yeah,
go do your
sure.
job because you don't need your boss to be like,
You
you
know,
working?
their normal-
Like-
When these possessions take place.
or you shouldn't need to, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Recall-
Goodbye. I
Because
love you.
these external demonic forces unplug a person's mind and then they plug it. So they're just using that host body and they're absolutely
People are so
disconnecting
crazy.
the host from the body. So again, in most instances of demonic possession, the victim does not remember anything.
Or Bill Bean, his website is Bill J. Bean, J. Bean the letter, BillJBean.com, linked up at coasttocoastam.com. Several of his books include The Connection, Stranger Than Fiction, Dark Force Revisited, Stranger Than Fiction 2, and his latest book that we're talking about tonight, My Life Transformation from Victim to Victor. Have you ever been hurt doing one of these things, Bill?
I never have, but I'll tell you this, my life has been in danger while doing these things. I've had people that wanted to shoot me.
Humans? You mean real people?
Yes, yes.
Real people?
Yes, absolutely. People that tried to physically attack me, people that did, and I thank God they were remain in control of the situation. People have tried to bite me, spit on me. They have spit on me, vomited on me. You just wouldn't believe it, George. You'd have to have been there yourself to see it, and then you would rub your eyes and go, did I just see that? Did I just see that person's eyes change, twist in a way that a human body can't? Did I just hear that person, someone else's voice coming out of that person now and speaking in another language or saying things that there's no way that person would know to say?
We'll be back in a moment with more with you, Bill.
Hi, it's Ken Connors in once again on a Monday morning for Andrew Carter. John Moore returned with entertainment and a chat at 7:20. So does Paul Mulcair, political insider, making his return at 7:40. At 8:10, we'll speak with an interior designer about how you can design your home and make it happy. And the Can't Lose quiz is back with your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to the Montreal Auto Show. It all starts at 5 on the Andrew Carter Morning Show and on CJAD 800. Why should I have a funeral?
This is Bridget Federley from King and Federley Funeral Home. As family and friends reunite during a funeral.
It's also known as the Manipolitan vacation. So that has continued into 2024, and this next story revolves around our Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. So Trudeau's office is clarifying that he and his family, including Sophie the kids, everyone's down in Jamaica, at, quote, no cost to taxpayers, end quote. That's the statement. Initially, it was said that Trudeau's family would pay for the stay and that they would reimburse the public for the cost. The ethics commissioner was consulted for the trip. That's important to note. Last year, the Trudeau family were in Jamaica and it cost taxpayers $160,000 to talk to travel, security. A reminder, he's our Prime Minister. The PM was found to have broken ethics rules previously, so that I understand this at times being a touchy subject with Justin Trudeau when traveling abroad. But this is now, it's now become and I'm kind of getting sick of the story. Where do you want to start with this?
Well, as someone who is in a blended family, not like anyone any kind of alarm or start any kind of, rumors or, when you split, you do try for the kids to sort of be together at holiday season, or creating these conditions. So I know that part of the story is sort of catching fire a little bit. So I think, we need to put that out. And the next one, I like you said, it's a frustrating rhetoric. It's a frustrating narrative that keeps coming back. But he needs to take a break. He's caught a family. I mean, a lot of people who work hard go on vacation. And he is someone of huge note in importance for our country and requires some security and some assistance in that. So ways to get there, ways to get back. I mean, are you usually sitting there and then all of a sudden, you know, it's nice to go on your way today? I don't think so.
Like,
No other country would require that.
added it to the morning, like, no security around it,
Yeah.
is that what we want, really, Tam? I'm getting up here with it.
I think what set it off was, of course, his trip, that famous trip to Japan. When he went and was on vacation on the first ever Truth and Reconciliation Day, especially here in Canada, I feel like every vacation after that was scrutinized so much so that, again, we had the issues with the Ethnic Cons, Private Island, and going there and staying with family. This time around, though, he's gone to visit friends. He was already clear with the ethics commissioner as well, so that's fine. And I agree. We need to think what the security is on. And I think that he deserves a break. And I don't see any issue with that. If he was staying somewhere that was $10,000 a night on the taxpayers, that's a whole different situation. But he's going to visit friends and family at a friend's resort of some kind. I think that is just fine.
Now, there are moments, like at Queen's funeral, like, those are not cheap accommodations. The Prime Minister and team had, and we can go back and forth on kind of what's appropriate and inappropriate there, because I kind of see both sides of it. But again, I'm very proud to be on a show where we don't carry a lot of water. Like, we kind of call it as we see it. And I at times have not been a real friend of this Prime Minister. What I'm done with this is the most garbage headline in Canadian politics right now. There is nothing more ridiculous you're going to see on any website than that. Do you know what, like, a backbench MP in their first term in this country makes? It's close to $200,000. That's your money. That's our money. That's my money. Hands, mayors, everyone. All right? You don't hear about where anyone goes on vacation who's not Prime Minister. You don't hear about where they spend that money. And that's still technically our money. Maybe not security detail with Polyev, maybe not security detail with Judge Hussain, but that's still, we still pay all of them. And I don't bring out that card a lot, but that is a fact. And I'm talking like the most inexperienced MPs in this country make about $200,000. They've barely been in the House of Commons. So until I know where everyone in the Conservatives went on vacation, until I know where everyone on the NDP side went on vacation, the Parti Québécois and the one person left in the Green Party, until I hear all of that, I don't want to hear what about it. It's the most ignorant thing in Canadian politics right now. I'm ready because anytime they go on vacation, guess what? We're paying for it. We're paying for Polly's vacation, Judge Hussain, everybody. And even the ones that aren't important. Let's be honest, the real backbenchers. We pay for all of them. He's the Prime Minister. He's still very, very, very important at what we do and how we conduct our business. I don't care what you think of it. And you need to find a new handle. There's enough. Believe me, there's enough. I've seen the polls, you've seen the polls. It's a lazy headline. It's ridiculous. Find a new angle. Because we're getting really lazy in this country.
Hey, go run away. That thing.
Breakfast television is going to actually later this
Ah, this chick.
And it's going to be a lot of fun. Breakfast television.ca.
And you ran away.
Yes, yeah. The truth of liberals are losing their minds because some people think that it's the United Nations. I know, possibly. All that for the drama fund. It's fascinating what political kind of manufacture a little bit of outrage. This news over comment from one representative of the U.S. One of the people that is very information in support of the statistics for 1546.3 with all of the United Nations. It has the Prime Minister's office and talking to the world of the raising serious questions. Does she not like the human rights records of the UN or women's rights or all the great things the UN does? You know what? I gotta say, I looked at the UN record and I don't like it, mainly because they're a failure of an organization. Now, before we get into what one Canada should lead the UN, let me give you some reasons why we should. It is an organization that, whatever ideas it started with, continues to fail as it is. Its goal, its main goal after the world is to bring about peace, to be a place for nations of the world to solve their problems. Have they done anything to Syria? Have they done anything to deal with the civil war in Yemen, where Iran is set up in the United Nations has been backing Hamas for years, and now we know we have the proof. The United Nations relief workers, we program with from schools and hospitals and areas, social programs in Gaza. But they knew that Hamas was using the hospitals, the tunnels, hostages, like the headquarters. They knew about this instead and did nothing. That was a spectacular failure. The United Nations continues to get off that thing. So the human rights abuses of dictatorships and autocratic and theocratic regimes around the world. These are all problems that Canada should be to go along with get along with as the United Nations. That's not been working. The culture conservatives taking it easy and they just downplay because of Canada's multilateralism. What did they do? They focused on things like the G7, NATO, the OECD, ASEAN, different organizations that were dealing more or less with countries that share our values for the most part. Maybe not always, but closer than, say, North Korea, Communist China. All of these, those countries get positioned on the human rights bodies at the United Nations. Iran was the chair of the Human Rights Social Forum just in November. This is not a good organization. Now, the position that because the United Nations has failed, the WHO and other UN subsidiary organizations because it impacts national sovereignty. I think that there are problems with that, but maybe the people trying to fix them overblown. But they're not crazy in thinking that the UN has failed. Who is crazy? Well, the liberals. They're thinking that any criticism of the UN shows that they're out of touch. No, the liberals are out of touch on this one. And I think it's the whole Canadians. Told them what the UN was really up to. You find out that I was right, and it's sort of liberals from home. Let me know what you think about the comments down below. Share this on social media, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
Hello, Reset family. My name is Jen Allen. I'm the director of events at Family Center. Registration for Reset 2024 is now open.
Good thing. What?
Going back, mister.
You can come down if you want. Well, well,
Hey everyone, it's Dr. Robbie and welcome back to this YouTube channel.
What?
Narcissism and narcissism. And stuff that shows up, including something called weaponized incompetence. So
what?
let's take this one on. Incompetence is bad enough when it gets weaponized, right? So you have encountered this, even if you haven't actually used this term. Weaponized incompetence is the partner who says, I don't know how the new dryer works, so I don't want to break it when I put the clothes in. So now you have to do it. It's the coworker who says, I don't have the password to that system, so I couldn't enter those files.
Oh, now you want to go out.
Have to do it. It's the family member who says, I don't have their flight information. Nobody ever tells me anything. Well, I don't know when to pick them up. So now you're the one rushing out to get them. So you kind of get the idea, right?
it's often this incapacity where lack has got to do the thing, right? So you may be the one having to take on the onus of the thing that they cannot do. The whole weaponizing has a passive aggressive vibe, a sort of vulnerable narcissistic thing happening. The weaponized incompetence is where the sullen, petulant victim stuff meets entitlement, meets not taking responsibility. The kind of, I can't do it, so you do it, and it's not my fault I can't do it. So then the assumption is someone's got to do it, and often it's you. Now you may wonder what non-weaponized incompetence looks like. Well, it looks like incompetence, just plain incompetence, right? It looks like the person like, well, I don't know how to work the dryer, let me figure out the dryer, could you show me how to do dryer work? Well, I don't know. Or they just don't do it right and the clothes don't get dry, right? Or can I have the password so I can get those entered? Or maybe they just entered the password wrong so many times that the password lost. Weaponized incompetence is an entitled incompetence. One thing you know about vulnerable narcissism is that many vulnerable narcissistic folks have sort of a failure to launch. They maintain fantasies about all the great things that they're going to do or be or how smart they are. Wait, then there's that entitlement for things to come to them. So why would they take initiative? And when that lack of initiative can be further substantiated by them actually not knowing something, then they run with it. Now, weaponized incompetence people are the worst people to hire for a job. You may make the mistake of thinking, well, they seem smart. But the fact is, in real life and in work life, hustle and grit are actually a bit more important than just luck. I have met a lot of really smart, vulnerable narcissists, like really smart. But they just didn't get stuff done. They talked about getting stuff done, but they didn't do the things, right? And they're smart, and you might find yourself giving them chance after chance after chance. But because weaponized incompetence people are often quite toxic, certainly entitled, if you keep them around long enough in the workplace, don't be surprised if they lawyer up if you try to fire them on grounds of their incompetence. So when you notice
give me a bit.
Stuff, especially the weaponized incompetence stuff,
We'll go.
watch
Give me
what's
a
going
little,
on
a couple
and
minutes.
do not give second chances. So another example of where you might see weaponized incompetence show up is, for example, in a relationship. And you see this a lot with people. We're going to have a child together. And, in the whole fantasy of a child having a child with someone else, the other partner.
When you die, you go to another life. Maybe heaven, maybe purgatory, maybe hell. These are the kinds of questions that make us help understand about our existence. Death is not the end of consciousness. We talk so much about our conquest of nature, our mastery of fate, our subjection to the physical world. The negative and the positive, the young and the yin, which are held to lie at the root of all phenomena in the world. Human being has himself between belonging right to you, man not dominating nature, but fitting into it and feeling perfectly at home. So in this way, through meditation, we come to that kind of profound peace which is exhibited in the faces of the people.
Incompetent partner might say, I'm going to help and I'm going to do the diapers and I'm going to wake up in the night with them and I'm going to do this and that. Then the time comes and they do the things better. So the diaper is on and it's half-assed with like, and they're actually trying to use like soft tape to put it on. the child's bath is a mess. The way they try to treat the kid creates a bigger mess in which the child doesn't, they put the kids on, the clothes on backwards, whatever it may be. And so what ends up happening is that they make the big promise, they don't deliver on the thing. Not only do they not deliver, they do it so badly, and you have no option but to do it right. And now you're stuck with the kid is this. So you've got it, now you find without, in very, very short period of time, you're gonna find that you are doing the lion's share of stuff with the child for no other that you want it done right, and this person has shown that they're completely incompetent at it. Now they're off the hook, and don't be surprised when they turn around and say, well, you didn't do anything. It's not like you ever let me do anything with a kid. So they get that passive aggressive treatment. They get that passive aggressive treatment. Can also be a little bit lawyerly and procedural in how they live their lives. They may hit you with a, you didn't ask me to do that, as though they are some program. They often lack imagination in that way, especially if they don't really want to do the thing that needs to be done. And they almost enjoy the argument and finding a loophole. And they certainly don't feel the need to show that hustle and grit. Again, hustle and grit are typically something we witness in people who are not entitled. Now listen, some brainy narcissistic folks can pull off hustle for just long enough to impress someone in a work setting that they admire, but forget about it for vulnerable narcissistic folks. Hustle and grit are never really going to be their strong suit. Now, this weaponized incompetence, when it runs into an empathic person, can result in you making excuses. And it has this sort of gaslighting feel. You may say things like, oh, I guess I didn't show them how to run the dryer, or they're right, I didn't give them the password. And then you can fall into their whole sort of irresponsible schema. Instead of thinking, why can't this grown-ass person step the hell up and figure it out? The weaponized incompetence people are definitely not people you would want to be on a deserted island with. They would hit you things like, sorry, I don't know how to break the code or not, nobody showed me. This weaponized incompetence phenomenon happens so much, and we are often tempted to write it off to lazy or annoying, but it's more than that. It is toxic. And in the workplace, it can mean that they do nothing or very little, and everyone else is left holding the bag. In a family, it may mean that a few people do the lion's share of chores and arrangements and stuff. And in a relationship, it means that you are nowhere near an equitable distribution of things like household responsibilities and chores. Don't get dazzled by the narcissistic people's big talk. Talk is worth nothing. Pay attention to people actually do the thing, whatever it is, because those people are the keepers. Let me tell you, somebody who's been a teacher and all kinds of things for a long time, hustle and grit are becoming more and more rare in the world that is more and more tinged by entitlement. So on the flip side, when you do find those really folks, hold on to them for dear life. Because there's a lot more people out there who are capable of this thing. Thank you.
When I, dump on someone, I need to make sure that I give them extra power when I fall down. Make sure they come back. Whatever it is, I need to make sure that I have full force and power. And this win-lose mindset is always a lose-lose. There's no winner. I don't win anything. I might win the game, but I lose the lesson. And I lose my harmony and my peace inside of me. I might make a lot of money and build a business, but then at what price? To my peace and to my harmony. And so my whole goal is to figure out how to keep unwinding this, because it's going to be a process forever. I'm going to continue to make mistakes and continue to be out of integrity, but the goal is to stay as conscious as possible, of the accountability and the support as frequent as possible, to stay on track and stay hard.
You had a quote in really hit me. It's really important again that I understand many where they come from, and this quote really hit me. The problem is that toughness doesn't stop, and it grows like cancer until it strangles all other feelings. I was like, oh God, I've never thought of toughness as being like that. And then when everything you're talking about, understanding when you're younger, the vulnerability, the teens mob, bullied for it, obviously you've got tough, and now in that toughness,
I had a lot of anger.
you have it, but I'm sure in these moments people are saying they're scared, they're kind of like getting more like in line, and so the toughness is actually teaching you a lesson, a false lesson, but it's teaching you a lesson, and then in that journey for 25, 30 years, no wonder your feelings were strangled.
Yeah, I was out of integrity with myself internally, because I was getting external results living one way, but not getting the internal results of peace and harmony and alignment. Because I was living in anger, resentment, and a lack of forgiveness from all the things in the past. And a feeling of, I'm never going to let anyone abuse me, take advantage of me, or abandon me. So if this ever comes up and I'm triggered, I'm going to block myself so it never happens. As opposed to just saying, life is going to happen. People are going to do what they do. I can interpret it as abandonment and abuse, or I can interpret it as something else, and just not take it personally. I can create new meaning from the events that are coming. It doesn't mean I have to like something, I might be disappointed still, but I don't need to be angry about it all. That doesn't serve my mission or my health. So again, I go back to priority 1 and 2, health and mission. If it's not useful for my health, why am I allowing it to consume and create a cancer inside of me? Again, doesn't mean I'm this perfect human being. I'm going to be upset and angry at times. But it's allowing me, that's why I have coaching and accountability and to get me back on track, to process it, to talk about it, get it out. I didn't like this thing. Okay, let's get it out and get back to the vision, get back to the mission, get back to who you are. It's a loving, passionate, wise, conscious human being. And that takes consistent practice.
To learn what romantic gestures are actually just a manipulation tactic, then click here right now.
You're not really that important to them at all when it comes to sex, apart from you're an achievement. And that can be very confusing for people because they think, oh my God, I've just met the most charming person. And
Bien. Est-ce que je peux parler? Pour reprendre le contrôle sur son anxiété, il faut reconnaître les symptômes et en parler.
Even if you try to teach them how you want to be treated, they ain't listening because they don't have to. They don't care. You're merely an object to get them what they need. I've heard you give examples, which I always find very powerful because it really is like almost acknowledgement, like, oh, okay, Dr. Ramani said that if they say this, it's a red flag. So I love being able to identify very specific red flags. And you have said, which I would love to talk about, quote, you said, benefit of the doubt is code for enabling. So is that, you should never give anyone the benefit of doubt? Can you explain that and break that down for me?
Listen, I'm a big fan of the rule of threes. You can try something 3 times, and if after the 3rd time, you keep doing something, a lot of benefit of the doubt, that's on you. That's on you at that point to say, okay. But if you're at your 55th benefit of the doubt, you're now an enabler, okay? Right? And, yes, one time a person may be late, okay? And they may even tell you, they may even text you that my work meeting went long, I'm going to be 30 minutes late, so they communicate clearly, or maybe they don't. You might say to them, hey, you know what? When you're going to be this late, my time is really challenged. It would actually be helpful for me to know I might have actually gone back to my car, gone to the errand. Then they show up 30 minutes late again. And then you're like, did you tell me they live on the other side of town? You can say, listen, it seems like being late is an issue. So maybe what we should do is, if you have all this traffic, budget. This is 1 hour
And so maybe we can shift the time. They show up late again, at that point, you think, this person's always late. And if the lateness doesn't work for me, this isn't gonna work. So then you're having, that's what I'm saying, that there has to be communication on what is happening here. The person may say, I'm never gonna be on time. I'm telling you that right now. That's not my, we can set things up that I show up when I show up, and you might say, no, that doesn't work for me. That doesn't respect my time. That's fine. Game over. I think the problem is people want it the way they want it. They're like, oh shit, they're not gonna be on time. And I think everyone almost becomes a failure. They want what they want. Wanting what you want is fine. Wanting it from something that can't give it, now we're back to the drawing the water from the empty well. And I think it really then is the responsibility we have to hold for ourselves. This is where the ancient issues people have of feeling they don't deserve more. So from childhood, people might have gotten a lesson that you don't matter. We don't value you. You're not important. So when that trails us into adulthood, we think like we don't deserve somebody to show up on time, or who am I to question somebody on whether they're, and then you have to accept that you may not get it for this particular person.
Oh my God, that's like one message that I remind myself every single day. It's communicate, but just because you're communicating doesn't then mean you actually get it. But there is some form of, but if I've said it, then it means that you have to acquiesce. And like, it just doesn't happen like that. Yeah.
No, especially with some of the narcissistic, because they're not listening to you. So then you're saying, how do you identify these red flags? Once you've communicated about something 3 times, okay, and it has been dishonored, devalued, not listened to, or invalidated, that's it. You're done. And if you're staying at the table after that, it's then time to recognize this is why I'm saying education about narcissism is so important, because for many people, they don't get it. So now a person's out there saying, 3 times, I guess someone vented it out, 3 times we had the same issue, now I know, there's no there. And but again, it's that work of devaluation and understanding that about yourself, that you might say, I don't deserve better. That's your narrative. That's you needing to go to therapy. That's you figuring it out. But you deserve someone to be on time. If that is what you value, you deserve that. If you're staying in it because you think you don't deserve better, then you're in a cycle, because especially someone narcissistic is never going to change that. And so that's one thing that doing the dive on yourself becomes really, really important. And the fantasy always has been for the child, when the person's a child, my parent is going to end up stepping up and being a good person, and the parent never turns around. And in adulthood, we play that fantasy out in our adult relationships. We want them to turn around, and it doesn't happen. And so it's really about giving people the knowledge about what this is. So once they're in it, they can say, this isn't working. Because with a narcissistic person, the earlier you leave, the easier it is to extract. Right? If it's after just a few dates, a few times, then you're sort of like, nobody has that much skin in the game. The problem is, early in the game, the narcissist doesn't like to lose. So they will try to suck you back. They'll try to hoover you back. And that is very seductive. So this person who wasn't on time is all of a sudden sending you flowers, or sending you a lot of text messages, or doing and saying exactly the things you want, because it just turned into a game for them. It's not about them, I've heard this person, I want to be on this game, and they'll suck them back in, and they'll go back to nothing.
Oh my God, so you just opened another can of worms. So then how do you identify going, oh, well, they heard me, and now they're making an effort? Because that's what I think, maybe even revert to initially. It's like, oh, I've voiced my concern. I've said that, they're not on time, and it's, okay, tell me.
No, he's not pushing back. Because again, you communicated with them 3 times and said, please be on time, and they did not listen to you. Only when you said, you know what, this isn't really working. It's time really matters to me. It's you leaving. That wasn't you talking. That wasn't your behavior. It was you leaving. And for narcissistic people, they're actually very sensitive to abandonment. And what happens is that's in a very unhealthy cycle. Because people say, oh, if I'm not getting what I want from this person, I'm just going to threaten to leave. Well, that's an insanely toxic relationship cycle. You're leaving because they're not leaving, and now they're on time. Not because they're listening to you, it's because they don't want to lose.
Social, and then it becomes a vicious cycle, right? Because then you've noticed that by threatening to leave, they then give you attention and love, but it's not for the reason you're hoping it's for. Oh my God, that's such a freaking massive breakthrough. Okay, wow. Well, you just hit me. I just need like a second to regroup. There's another thing
in this, by the way. There's another thing that you said, which is that wasn't my intention. And the funny thing is, that's the strategy I now have been using for the last few months. When I'm apologizing to someone, I'm literally saying, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That wasn't my intention." Because even I need them to know that I didn't want to upset them or hurt them. But then I heard you say, if someone says it wasn't my intention, then that is a big red flag.
It's a red flag when they're not showing any care and concern for your feelings. So if somebody gets very upset, you've done something, okay, whatever it may be, and they're upset, and you say, no matter what, you always want to start with empathy. Always open with empathy. That's a rule people should hold. Say, I hear you. I can hear you're very upset, and I'm so sorry. And even worse, I can see that I'm responsible. Into this. Please tell me how you're feeling. Always give that person a chance to share, because what we do is we're so uncomfortable with other people's discomfort with us, we tend to cut that conversation off because we don't want to hear it. But they need to say it. And if they feel safe and we're holding space for them, they'll share it and say, I felt hurt. I felt unheard. I felt devalued. And you'll say, I am so sorry. I want to tell you it wasn't my intention. However, that doesn't matter because you're hurt. You see the difference between them, somebody who just opens up with the person says, you hurt my feelings, la 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 la, and then the person says, well, that wasn't my intention. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, it's sort of these words get their power in terms of placement and whether or not the person's building empathy in there. So if you're really, because at that point, after you've heard someone, held a safe space for them, and empathize with them, and really took it in, as hard as it was to do that, they've soothed it. They recognize you are safe. So when you say that wasn't my intention, after all of that, they'll say, no, I get that it wasn't your intention. I understand that. And they feel safe enough to share an emotion. That means that relationship can now go to the next level of intimacy because it's safe. But if you share something with me, you say, hey, girl, yeah, I'm hurt because and I opened it, and I said, well, that wasn't my intention. I just shut you down. I've not opened the door for you to share. And that's what narcissistic people do. They shut the lines of communication through manipulations. That wasn't my intention, through gaslighting. There's nowhere to go at that point. So the relationship lacks intimacy because there's no share.
How on earth do you have that discussion with somebody? So let's say you do say that and they shut you down. As the person on the other side that's talking to a narcissist, how would you continue a conversation?
You don't. You don't. See, that's the thing. There's no workaround on this one. Because now they shut you down. They're basically saying your emotional world is of no importance to me. You're of no importance to me. Where do you go? And I think the thing that I will never get behind is people think, no, there has to be a way forward. No, there's not. Because at this point, you're disrespecting yourself saying this conversation, and it is just going to get more abusive. So there is no way forward.
So I want to talk about when you first start meeting someone, because you said it's easier to kind of identify, and I don't know if you actually use these words, but it's a little simpler to identify. Maybe you're not as close as you can, let's say, put away from them if you're dating and those certain characteristics. But I heard you talk about charisma. Now, charisma to me is intoxicating. When someone's around you and they're charismatic, but I love being around them. But I heard a quote, you're shaking your head. I want to read this quote that you said that I love. Charisma is like heavy perfume or cologne that someone wears when they don't take a shower. It's probably covering up something else. Talk to me about that, because I like to kind of think I'm charismatic, but I don't like to think of myself as being, a narcissist or, very heavily perfumed.
So here's the thing with charisma. It is a charisma. Think of the letter U upside down. Okay, when a person has no charisma, let's face it, there's no interest. It's sort of like it's a lot of work. I get that. Then there's that mid-level charisma, right? It is somebody who is a good listener, a good talker, but they're not sucking all the oxygen out of the room. Somebody who's at the far end of that view, the other side of the curve, when it's too much charisma, it feels like you're at a performance, and it's exhausting. But I will say, especially for people who survived narcissistic relationships, I'll say to them, you know what? you don't get to play in the deep end of the charisma pool. Like, we're not gonna swim on that side of the pool, because those folks, more often than not, are a problem. And I wonder, is all that big charisma, why do they need for the attention? Why do they need all eyes on them? Why are they already letting other people talk? So there's people who can be incredibly charismatic, but also very engaging. But one of the challenges with charismatic people is they have an ability, they don't look at people, they look through people. So even though they're looking, talking, they're listening to you and they're looking at you and they're talking to you, it really does seem that they're literally looking right through you to see someone more interesting coming through the door. That's a real signature piece of charisma. Is what's the next better thing than the person who's in front of me? And so, charisma to me, I would say charisma is like an amusement park. Nobody's going to an amusement park every day, but it sure is fun on the day it happens. So I always say, keep the charismatic people around for about 2 weeks, have some fun, have a play, but this is probably not a long game. Because the charismatic people, that is a very almost a cultivated pattern that's designed. Charisma accompanies this empathy, kindness, respect. Charisma is also conflated with something we call extroversion. Extroverts are people like being with other people, they draw their energy from other people, they like crowds, they like gatherings. That's in contrast to the blessed introverts. And the introverts do not get their energy from other people. They're introspective, they spend a lot of time in there. They actually prefer their group small. They're loyal as heck to those people and absolutely lovely. But you put them in a crowd of 500 people and they're actually going to look like a deer in the headlights. They're not enjoying stuff. Not because they're anxious, it's just how they enjoy it. And I'm going to be frank with you, I'm an introvert.
Yeah, me
And
too.
I do not like crowds of people. Very introverted. Like on any given day, I would rather be home either with my child or with my partner or with not with groups of people. And when I spend time with groups of people, I'm as depleted as if I've been up for 24 hours. Like when I do a big speaking, like I speak to sometimes thousands of people at seminars, I'm exhausted. Even though it's on Zoom, I'm exhausted when it's done. And the person is charismatic introvert. I think actually a charismatic introvert might be where charisma might be a little bit more healthy, because then they might be able to sort of be engaging, sort of connect and all of that. But charisma is a tricky pattern because we always assume, Lisa, that it's a good thing. And I think people have to be discerning. They have to say, is this charismatic person actually listening? Are they participating in an equal way? Are they expecting everyone to fawn over them? Like, charisma's like wine. You gotta know what you're drinking.
Who are more insecure or drawn more to charisma?
How often is somebody says, hey, you're dating, look for the least charismatic person. Look for somebody who doesn't have much charisma. That's not what anyone is telling anyone when they're dating. When people are a little more charismatic and look more like that, they tend to get more of the tips, right? So I think that we have overvalued this quality societally, that I don't necessarily think that insecure people are drawn to that. I think everybody is drawn to that. And I will tell you, I'm a rare person. When I meet a I actually have no interest. I walk away. I find them depleting, exhausting, troublesome. I really will look for that person who seems much more centered and attention seeking, and I'm always aware. It's always aware.
Actually, I can say that narcissists can't change.
So unhealthy, or what we call pathological definition, rigid. Okay? So these are, and the reason these patterns are so rigid is because people with these personality patterns, like narcissism, are not introspective. They don't look inward. People who are narcissistic, because they're so unaware of what the driver is, there's deep unprocessed insecurity, and they're dysregulated. They're very impulsive. So what many narcissistic people will say is, they'll sometimes get, and this is what confuses people in these relationships, they know what's right and they know what's wrong. So they'll throw one of their tantrums, and they'll be very cruel and mean and reactive. Afterwards, they'll know they did the wrong thing. But that reactivity reduced their tension, right? And it worked for them. The narcissist is like, oh, I feel relieved that I got out. But everyone else has been devastated by their tantrum. They're like, okay, I feel better now. I let it out. I'm sorry now. And how many times do you have someone blow up on you and then say, I'm sorry? And the resistance to change is because the reactivity of the narcissist is almost like a reflex. They basically want a world where they're like, can't you just let me have my tantrums? And then I can say sorry afterwards. And you have to say, that's not how the world works. These people are hurt. And everyone's not designed to be your pacifier. You're not, I mean, nobody gets mad at a 6-month-old baby for crying because it's a baby. But in essence, the narcissist wants to be treated like a 6-month-old, have their tantrums and still have people snuggle them after, right? And that's not how life works. So that's what I mean by they don't change. Some people who are narcissistic will look up and say, okay, I get it. This pattern is toxic. I am not behaving well. I am not being a nice person. I've lost the love of my life. I've become isolated from my family. I've lost my job. They know something's up. And then they might come in therapy. And the therapist, like me, would say, okay, what we need you to be is very mindful. You need to be aware of how you're impacting other people. You need to breathe and be present with them. And I was like, what? I have to care? I have to care about their feelings? This is exhausting. And they're actually kind of put off by what's being asked of them, but they know they need to do it. It's almost like, I can say it, it's almost like trying to lose weight. Someone's like, oh, in order to lose weight, you can't eat sweets, and you can't eat hamburgers, and you can't eat french fries, and you have to eat this. And they're like, that's what it's going to take? And they're like, yeah, you can't continue. So they'll say, I don't know about this. You stay heavy. And they say unhealthy weight, okay? Same thing with an narcissist. So if this is what it's going to take, a lot of people say, I don't think it's. So the narcissist does not recognize the need for change until stuff falls apart. Okay? They lose their partner. Their kids aren't talking to them. They lose their job. They publicly are shamed for something. They don't, until that point, they're going along their lives and sort of making a mess of everything. And so then they get called out and there's no consequences. Like sometimes you get called out and there's no consequences. So jail, consequences might be a divorce, consequences maybe losing your money, consequences maybe a whole number of things. And so those consequences, especially if they're public consequences, I no longer married, or I don't have my partner, or I no longer have my money. And then someday you have to start taking a deep dive everyone. And then, and even then, the many narcissists are much more likely to blame other people for their failures. So they're still like, this is my wife's fault, this is the world's fault, this is this person's fault, this is this, this is this. At some point that they're going to say they blamed everyone, nothing's going their way, and a small percentage of people with this pattern will say, okay, maybe I am responsible for this, and I don't like what my life looks like right now. You tell them what it means to take responsibility, and that's actually something that feels incredibly uncomfortable for them. But all change to a healthier place from an unhealthy place is uncomfortable. Whether it's a person dealing with anxiety, whether it's a person dealing with depression, whether it's a person dealing with panic attacks, they have to go to therapy. They have to tolerate the discomfort. They have to talk about the uncomfortable stuff to get to a healthy place. It's no more different than with narcissism. The challenge is that the narcissist is very, very resistant to do introspective and critical work.
Yeah, and what you just said, so it's basically it's what's happening to them. So they've lost the people, so that they're feeling empty, so they think, okay, maybe I need to do something about it. Versus, oh my God, I can't believe I just had the love of my life.
Correct.
Correct. That's very powerful, very powerful. And I've heard you somewhat evolve your data on the stats between how many men and women are narcissists. Obviously, it's a very hard thing to identify on like the data, but I know that you were initially saying it was 80-20, and then you said over time you're starting to realize that now it's actually becoming like 70-30, potentially 60-40. What do you think that is? Is that just us understanding it more and it displays differently in a man or a woman, or are you seeing that more women are becoming narcissists?
I think men are more socialized for narcissistic traits. We devalue emotion in men. They're mocked and made fun of if they're vulnerable. Like the way boys are raised, the way men are raised, they're always more vulnerable. Aggression has a very different, like if a man dominates, that's considered normative, it's not normative for women. So all of these qualities, we devalue empathy in men. Men have more privilege, so they're going to be more entitled. All of that means that just from a socialization perspective, you're always going to have more male narcissists. There's no two ways about it. However, interestingly, as women do get in some places of their lives a little more power, some women do have privilege. Those women are going to be more vulnerable to being narcissistic. It's just that for men, they tend to have more of the overt symptoms of narcissism, the big grandiosity, the big arrogance, the dominance, the control. Those are sort of very male kinds of patterns. Women may have more victimized, passive-aggressive patterns. So they may not be as in your face, but it's still narcissistic. And so it's not because we don't think it's a word we use with women as much, but oh, they're definitely out there. And I think that sadly, as people get more power in the society, there's a greater vulnerability of it. But it's also a very developmental pattern too. Narcissism doesn't spring up when somebody's 30. It's something that was developed through childhood. So girls, and female children are going to be as affected by this as male children, and so we're going to see that those impacts of parenting are there. But it could very well be that as girls go through their childhood, they have more opportunities to develop the emotional muscles because it's more part of their play. You know, whereas for boys, if they're crying, they're maybe you're a sissy, you're a loser, boys don't cry. Girl cries is actually permitted. And so we have to create more permission for men to be emotional. That would actually be a big part young and early. Parents should not chastise a son for crying. We should create spaces for boys to cry. That's a big socialization piece that's linked to sex and gender that we really have to pay attention to, and we're not good at that. So all of that's also kind of role.
Well, that's about it. So thinking about a young boy being grandiose or over the top is almost rewarded for it. And if a girl is, she's told to not do it. So over time, as it becomes adult, with the narcissist male is just almost forgiven, but the female has somewhat limited passive aggressive. So it's very different behavior, right, than being overtly overpowering, overbearing.
Yeah, it's very, so a woman would not have been, those traits would not have been shaped and socialized in her the same way. And so, you know, and listen, there's a whole new world of conversations that's going to come up with people who are trans, right? Who grew up with socialized to a set of gender roles, and they themselves are struggling with that. And they're saying, no, you know, like, please allow me to be the gender that's our people. We're just beginning to explore these issues of trans people and queer people. So, you know, I think we've always used this with a very heteronormative kind of a lens. So, but when we think of it in that traditional lens of boys and girls, men and women, is that definitely that when a woman, somebody viewed as a woman, is speaking more assertively, clearly, in a commanding manner, much more likely to be pathologized for that, be called aggressive, be called unattractive. And then if a man is speaking in that way, he's viewed as a leader. They'll use the word assertive there. They'll view him as authoritative. But remember, these are developmental.
I believe that the devil has a short time to be in control because he has literally captured the hearts and minds of many, especially the youth, to where they're desensitized to the point and step over the dead body and go eat sandwiches and just think that there's nothing wrong with anything. I mean, look at that case out there, I think it was in Arizona, where the two kids ran that police officer down on his bicycle. And they laughed and joked and said they'd be out in a month, no big deal. It has the fingerprint of the devil all over it. That's where everything upside down and backwards. Because it is the devil who does everything in reverse.
Next up, Tom in Buffalo, New York is with us. Hi, Tom. Go ahead.
You're just like the most crazy of all
Thank you
crazy.
very much. I appreciate the time, and I'm not going to thank you for taking my call. I have several questions, and George, you might wish to grab a pen and paper because you probably might want to rattle them off. Number one, when your guest discussed being under surveillance, as somebody who was experiments in stealth personnel technology by military contractors, research institutions, and members of the American military. I'm very curious, number one, as to which intelligence agency your guest believes put him under surveillance and why. Number two would be taking it away from the spiritual realm. Given the fact that the military has been working on something called phantom bogey technologies, which I have captured, by the way, photographically and videographically, is there a chance that there actually be a spiritual situation, but a military technology testing situation involving phantom bogeys, where people will see what they believe to be enemy troops and draw fire, but they're not really troops. They are projected images. That would be an alternative theory of the crime that I would like your guests on. And in terms of the people behind it, has he considered any countermeasures? For example, writing down license plates if he believes that he's under vehicular surveillance and see which plates are around him, how long, where, what time of day. Because I'm happy to tell you that I was able to, number one, break this technology. There's several kinds of self-personnel technology. It started way back in the 1980s, and they've got it very well developed now. I was able to identify the perpetrators by having plates run on people who were around me different times of day,
Third place, Poetry Slam.
places, different areas, and George, this kind of goes back
Walking
to
class.
your guest, Robert.
She goes perfect, Madison, you're just in time.
Camellia.
Poetry Slam day. I was like, I don't have phone. She goes, okay. Sing a song and just don't sing it. Speak it. And I was just like, dead puppies aren't much. And she's like, no, next, another song. I'm like, it's a great song though. I was like, it has like real significant beat. And she's like, no, not that, and not that. I was like, oh, okay. So I did Dr. Demento, the Funny Farm.
What do you think of that?
Remember when you ran away and I got on my knees and begged you not to leave because I go berserk? Well, you left me anyhow, and then days got worse and worse, and now you see I've gone completely out of my mind. And they're coming to take me away, haha, they're coming to take me away from Funny Farm. I'm like, all the time, I'll be having this nice morning, clean my clothes, they're going to take me away. Yeah, so like, turns out they're like, okay, well, no one else wants to go to the auditorium to do it on stage for the competition, whatever, so you're going. And I was like, really? Because, like, I just got here. I literally just walked into class, very unprepared. Like, and they're like, well, you're going to go on stage the whole school. Yeah, third place anyway. I wore a big-ass purple tie with orange polka dots. Fury loves it. He gets all giggly. It's funny.
In the shadows, and they know who they are and when they are. And I don't care about writing down license plates. I don't live in fear of them. I don't really care. And look, I have 5 doctors around me on a regular basis, and that happens even when I'm traveling out of town to go and help somebody.
Sure, you severe paranoia.
Somebody in Seattle, Washington, could be somebody in Maine, you know, at any coast, any place, or the southern part of the country. They're there, and that's okay. I wouldn't care if they landed. I wouldn't care if one landed right now. Engage them. How can I do that? By the power of God working through me. So I know that He's with me.
You're a fucking idiot.
Nothing or no one is going to stand against me. I would have been dead a long time ago.
Except the policia.
For the power of God working through me and keeping me safe and protected. So I don't worry about any of it. And I find, and I've been there, where when this all started in 1995 with this level of surveillance, I felt like I was losing my mind. I felt like I was going to have a breakdown. And then when I stepped into this level of warrior mode, faith, strength, and courage, I don't worry about any of it now. None of it.
Oh, shit.
Any specific agency watching you, Bill?
Well, I can tell you this. Somebody approached me one time and said, I will never talk to you again. You'll never see me again. But you're being monitored through Fort Meade and NSA. So that's what I heard from someone that walked up to me
approached me one time and said that. And probably other alphabet agencies as well, because one time, it's so bizarre, George.
Hold on, Bill. Tell us that story when we come back. We're going to take a short break and come back with final phone calls for Bill Bean, the spiritual warrior. His book is called My Life Transformation from Victim to Victor. Next hour, we'll have open lines for you on Coast to Coast. And as you know, you're allowed to call the guest and open lines now. We'll be back.
To find out where George Norrie is speaking, go to the Coast to Coast AM.com website, scroll down to the bottom, and click George's calendar.
Once again on a Monday morning for Andrew Carter. John Moore returned with entertainment and a chat at 7:20. So does Paul Care, our political insider, making his return at 7:40. 8:10, we'll speak with an interior designer about how you can design your home to make it happy. And the Can't Lose quiz is back with your chance to win a 4-pack of tickets to the Montreal Auto Show. It all starts at 5 on the Andrew Carter Morning Show here on CJAD 800.
Need some money, quick. Do not stress, there's Surety Express.
Some unexpected bills came in. Need a little extra for a special occasion? Surety Express KIT endorse you.
You mean not losing my life?
$2,000 in less than 24 hours. Visit SuretyExpress.ca.
No more stress, Surety Express.
Some conditions apply. McDonald's breakfast burrito. It's your McDonald's breakfast wrapped in a cozy tortilla blanket. To be wrapped in a cozy tortilla blanket. Participating restaurants in Canada until 11 a.m.
So Jane, you feel like you're in a toxic relationship? Yes, we had a good connection once, but lately it's been patchy. What do you think that is? So they're slow. Frankly, a bit behind the times. Let's see. Well, maybe it's time to cut the cord. Oh, it's not a cord. Switch to Bell Pure Fiber Internet with speed up to 500 megabits per second and better TV service with the channels you love, including sports networks and Crave. Now only $89 a month. To check availability, call 310 Bell. Bell. Switching just got better.
Our favorite fine furniture store is Mobile Art Decor. For over 30 years, Mobile Art has been the best source of exceptional, top-quality luxury furniture, custom upholstery, and accessories for lighting and design that will inspire and motivate you. Imported from Europe and around the world for every room and every taste. For a truly unique experience, professional interior design advice, and great service, visit Mobile Art, 8260 Devonshire, west of DeCarry. MobileArt.ca. Elevate your home and transform your space with C&M Textiles. Discover a world of endless possibilities with their exquisite fabrics, state-of-the-art motorized blinds, customized window treatments, and more. Visit one of their 4 showrooms and start creating your dream home, office, or event space with bespoke products that not only provide privacy and light control, but also reflect your individuality. Bring your vision to life, one room at a time. Shop now. C&M Textiles. Do it once. Do it right. CMTextiles.com.
He could be 30. He could be 50. Life has aged him beyond his years. The shopping cart carries everything. Here he comes, toward you. What you think you know about how he got here is probably wrong. Don't let homelessness assumptions get in the way of homelessness solutions. Go to CanadaCanDoIt.ca. Help the Canadian Alliance to End Homelessness. Why should I prearrange a funeral?
This is Mary Pallett from Kingdom Family Funeral Home. Making a pre-arrangement cannot avoid experiencing grief, but it helps reduce the amount of decisions to be made when a family loses a loved one. I want families to feel comfortable and make informed decisions, so I invite you to reach out to me with no obligation.
Kanan Vanderley, recipient of the Consumer Choice Award from 2021 to 2023. For information, call 514-481-5301 or visit kananvanderley.com. There are all kinds of reasons a couple might be having trouble with intimacy. Men, especially, often feel like they're not up to the task of talking about it, that is. But that's the most important part. Talk about it with your partner and then book a consultation at elmasexualwellness.com. Help is available, always with respect and discretion, in the Cary Square and on Boulevard St. Joseph in Gatineau. Take a break from your usual online activity and visit elmasexualwellness.com.
This is Mike from Andy's House. If you or a loved one are struggling with drugs or alcohol, call us to learn more about our top-rated programs, including our new 35-day Residential Plus program. Call 514-738-ANDY, 514-738-ANDY. Call today.
This program is for entertainment purposes only. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect the views of CJAD 800.
I love you so. To talk to George Norrie, call the Wildcard line at 818-501-4109. The first-time caller line is 818-501-4721. To talk toll-free from east of the Rockies, call 800-825-5033. From west of the Rockies toll-free, call 800-618-8255. To reach George via Skype, use Skype name George97313. Send George a text message anytime at 818-298-6521. This is Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie.
We have an open line here on Coast to Coast, and we'll come back in a moment with Bill Bean, the spiritual warrior, and take final calls with him on Coast to Coast. Have you signed up yet to become a Coast Insider? It's a great deal at 15 cents a day.
Hi, this is Jerry from Pearland, Texas. Loyal listener since 1996. I love being a Coast to Coast Insider because I can download shows to my phone or listen anywhere in Texas, from our Gulf Coast beaches to the mountains of Big Bend.
Hi, I'm Pam from Denver. I've been a Coast to Coast Insider for many, many years and love it. I get to listen whenever I want and get to tap into Art Bell's show vault. You too can get these goodies. Become a Coast to Coast Insider today.
This is Jack. I'm a Coast Insider and I love the show. I can replay the show from the night before or anytime with the show archives. All of the guests are very informative and super entertaining. Sign up and become a Coast Insider today. You'll be glad you did.
You sure will. A couple ways to sign up. Our website, coasttocoastam.com, right at the top of the homepage. It says Insider. Just click that. The other way is the app from your app store. Put it on your phone. And once you've loaded it, look for profiles and subscriptions. You get 2 weeks free with the app, by the way. And if you live in Canada, you're eligible now to become a app. Now here's something for you to lose some weight.
If you're looking to lose some weight, learning the science of weight loss versus just counting calories is the true secret to weight magic drops and capsules. Here's product creator Dan Putnam to explain how insulin management is the key.
Everything for weight loss has been focused on eating less calories. What a lot of people don't realize is one of the most important things is going insulin levels. When we eat, it's going to first go through the liver, then it goes to the muscles. Anything more than that, then it goes into the fat. If there's insulin present, the body's taking that you just ate. So the body has a mechanism that it actually shuts down the energy in the fat. So you have to be able to control that insulin, or it's going to be very difficult, almost impossible to burn the fat.
Dan
Dan, so tell me about Weight Magic Drops.
We have these absolutely amazing Weight Magic drops. The concept of this is control insulin, expanding insulin synthesis. Also, it has an exact diet to control your insulin levels. So by using these drops to follow this diet and putting the body into the fat burning mode.
Dan, Weight Magic capsules help resolve a problem most overweight people have going against them. What is that?
Their core body temperature is less than the people at their ideal weight. That is your metabolism. So just in summary, we've created the Weight Magic drop to help control the insulin, also cleanse the liver, and then the Weight Magic capsules to increase that metabolism. Not uncommon for somebody to lose a half a pound to a pound a day. So it really is the perfect duo for fat loss.
Buy George's Weight Magic Drops and capsules now and shed those pounds. Order now at healthylooking.com or by phone at 800-595-7490. Free shipping with promo code George. That's healthylooking.com or 800-595-7490. George's Weight Magic from healthylooking.com.
So many Quebecers suffer from back pain, which, when left untreated, can result in a loss of quality of life. The Quebec Chiropractors Association invites you to learn more. Visit chiropractic.com for more information about the practice. You can find tips and advice for daily activities and where you can find the chiropractor closest to you. Be well informed. Prevent injuries. Live your life to the fullest. Pain changes everything. Chiropractic care changes pain.
Putting off surgery for back pain? Need medications to get through the day? Back pain, stenosis, and sciatica used to mean surgery medications. Richard Kim Medicine, the region's regenerative medicine expert, solves back pain with a unique solution. No surgery, no medications. Get back hope and get back to living. Richard Kim Medicine, medicine that moves you. For a free consultation, call 514-657-8919. RichardKimMedicine.com. 514-657-8919. Why should I have a funeral?
This is Bridget Federley from Canaan Federley Funeral Home. As family and friends reunite during a funeral, mourning becomes a shared experience. We cry, we support each other, and we share warm memories. At Canaan Federley, we work hand in hand with our families to honor the life of their loved one.
Canaan Federley, recipient of the Consumer Choice Award from 2021 to 2023. For information, call 514-481-5301 or visit canefederley.com. He was a trailblazer who paved the way for a generation of Swedish hockey players.
I'm going to put the work in. I'm going to get the job done.
Creed presents Gloria, the journey of a legend.
I'm the international scout for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
A drama series following the rise of Gloria Solman from obscurity to NHL stardom. Gloria, the journey of a legend. Stream now on Creed. Plan starting at $9.99 a month. Subscribe at creed.ca.
And welcome back to Coast. George Murray with Bill Bean. Bill, before we take final calls, you were going to mention a story about the surveillance. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just amazing, George, how all that began. And it really, manifested in 1995, January of 1995, to be exact. I started having these frequent sightings of UFOs, now called UAPs. And I couldn't understand why. I mean, I'd had pre-exposure. The first sighting I had was as a child in 1977. But it really started on a regular basis in January of 1995 for some reason. And this level of interest or surveillance, or whatever you want to call it, came along with that. And this went on for quite a few years, from 1995 to 2008. It was just absolute. I shot over 16 hours of video footage and taken obscene photographs and had as many people, 50 people in a group with me that witnessed these things. I had Robert Bigelow contact me through Dr. Eric Davis, and they were involved in my case, and Stephen Greer sent individuals. there was a lot of interest. It was covered by every major TV news station in the Baltimore area. Some even came out and started organizing these sky watches, and people would come out. The local news came out, and it's absolutely amazing. But all this was going on simultaneously, and whether it was the vehicles, vans, or cars, or helicopters, my phones were tapped. There was a level of surveillance going on that was just off the charts. And I really feel that, maybe I shouldn't say this, but let's just say that due to certain people being involved, I think that it increased the interest in surveillance. And boy, oh boy, I can't describe in words what a bad place I was in, at that point in time, because I did not have my face like I do now. And George, I even went through the being taken somewhere else, by a non-human being. That happened in 1997, and we could make a whole show out of that. I mean, the things that I've seen and experienced, and I read about in this book. Some people are going to go, there's no way this guy could have all these experiences. How is this possible? Well, it is possible. It all happened. And I still have these sightings to this day. January 1st was the last sighting, the most recent sighting of a UFO. And the copter stuff continues to happen from time to time as well. And it is directed towards me. I mean, there have been times, George, that these things have come down so low and pointing the nose down, like right towards me.
What do they want, Bill? What are they trying to do?
I don't know the answer. The speculation, my opinion on it would be that they must know something about me that I don't know, and they're interested in that. Or perhaps it's as simple as what I said earlier in the interview, that they somehow know that God shows this calling upon me, bringing me into the world, that he would work through me to be this spiritual warrior to help people, and they're trying to understand it. I guess that's my best guess on the whole thing. I sort of have given up trying to understand it. I have had many black experiences. I had an encounter with a shadow figure that was running from me because it noticed, I guess, was aware that I'm watching it, that I see it, and all of a sudden it started picking up. It looked like a shadow-esque figure, and I glanced over, I saw it, and it realized that I saw it, and all of a sudden the steps started going very quickly, and I jumped out of my chair, and it disappeared through the wall, and I was binding and rebuking and casting out and sealing. I've had just about every type of experience that you can imagine, including the Bigfoot Sasquatch Sabe experience with those beings as well. It's all happened. It's all for a reason. I don't know what the reason is, but I'm just thankful that God has the level of favor on me that he does. He keeps me safe. He's keeping me empowered. He's keeping me blessed, and he's keeping me in what I call warrior mode.
That's great. Let's go back to the calls now. East of the Rockies, Roberto in Florida. Hey, Roberto.
Hi, I was wondering, Bill, I'm a visual impaired person, and I was wondering if you see anything in my life that's keeping me from getting out of the victimhood and getting into the victory lane. And because I'm it feels like I'm spinning my wheels when it comes to trying to get ahead, looking for a job. Could it be because my eye condition that prospective employers hesitate to give me a job?
Well, my brother, I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you for your call, and God bless you, and I'll certainly be praying for you. And I would like for you to reach out to me. When you visit BillJBean.com, you can email me directly from the site. I want you to reach out to me, and I will do everything that I can by the power of God working through me to help you. And it sounds to me, without really knowing the answer, it sounds to me like there's been some type of trauma in your life that has opened the doorway and kept you in this demonic stronghold. It's like a block that keeps you from moving forward. So please reach out to me and let's have a session. And I am 100% certain they got to work through you to remove it all from you. But then we have to put a game plan for your life and moving forward to where you step out of that fear-based, trauma-based way of thinking and living into warrior mode, having that level of faith, strength, and courage.
What do demons look like, Bill?
Well, I've seen many different types, that's for sure. I've seen anything from like a black hooded figure with glowing red eyes to other figures that sort of look like monsters that and had like these teeth that I guess the best way to describe it, George, would be almost canine in a way, very sharp and pointed teeth. I've seen some that one case in particular I'm thinking of right now, 2014, looked like one of those Mothman creatures. And I came within probably 6 to 10 feet of that entity. And it was only by the power of God that I could withstand it, because most people, and just think about what I've said, you and I have talked about this before. A lot of people would have fainted, they might have soiled themselves, they might have turned around and just ran as fast as they could. It was only by the power of God that I could stand there face to face within 10 feet of this beast.
Somebody needs to put you in a fucking home.
Who Jeffrey Epstein hung around with while he was alive. People who flew on his airplane, people who stayed on his private island in the Caribbean, those who had dinner at his home on Fifth Avenue in New York. And to some extent, those names are coming out, not all of them, but we know a lot of the people who are in Jeffrey Epstein's life, and we have for several years now. But on another level, that whole story seems like a bit of a sideshow, because it doesn't answer the main mysteries surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's life or death, and there are 3 of them, almost none of which is ever discussed in the media. The first is, who did Jeffrey Epstein work for? What did Jeffrey Epstein do for a living, and on whose behalf? We don't know. The second question is, where did all the money come from? Hundreds of millions of dollars that passed through his hands over many years. And where is it now? We don't know that either. And the third question may be the most pressing of all, which is, what happened to Jeffrey Epstein? On August 10, 2019, he was found dead in the Federal Correction Facility in Manhattan, one of the most secure places in the world. Did he kill himself, as the government has claimed ever since, or was he murdered? Well, the overwhelming evidence suggests that he was in fact murdered, and that the U.S. government, including the Attorney General of the United States, covered up that murder. These are the questions that matter most, and they're exactly the ones not being addressed in the news media. Why is that? We decided to speak to someone who has insight into this question.
That was fucking dumb.
Only surviving relative. His name is Mark Epstein. He was Jeffrey Epstein's brother, separated by 18 months. He's a successful real estate developer in New York, and he's very concerned for his own safety. The interview that follows is one that you will listen to rather than see. Mark Epstein refused to appear on camera, but we think what he has to say is worth hearing. Here it is. Do you think your brother killed himself?
Not now. No. When I first heard he was dead from suicide, I had no reason to doubt it, so I accepted that. But then after the autopsy, and after Bill Barr made that asinine statement, I said, this was not suicide.
But when you first heard the news, you thought it was a possibility that he killed him.
Yeah, I accepted it as a fact. I heard it on the news. The government didn't notify me, as they said. I heard it on CNN in the morning of the 10th.
And you're his only survivor. You're the only surviving relative.
Yes. He has no children and no parents, and there's no other siblings.
When did you start to think that he did not kill himself?
Well, after the autopsy, and both pathologists, the city pathologist and Dr. Barton, came out of the autopsy, and they said this doesn't look like a suicide. It looks more like a homicide.
So what did you do then?
Well, okay, I figured you have to look into this to see what's going on.
Were you shocked that he might have been killed?
It came as a surprise. Yeah.
So as his only surviving relative, what did you do to find out what happened to him?
Well, I started to inquire about what took place. The Justice Department was supposedly investigating. The initial death certificate said pending, when it said cause of death, which means pending further investigation.
Yes.
So, but then a few days later, it was declared a suicide by the chief pathologist, who was not at the autopsy. And the question became, what investigation was done in such a short period of time to make her determine it was a suicide, or was she basing it on Bill Barr's statement?
And who was the chief pathologist who made that declaration?
Dr. Roman?
That was the pathologist who was there.
No, that was Sampson. Barbara Sampson was the chief pathologist. Dr.
Right.
Roman did the actual autopsy with Dr. Barnes.
So Barbara Sampson is the person who declared it officially a suicide, and she was not, as you said, at the autopsy, that she was not present for it.
Correct. And when they call it a suicide, they stop investigating. Because if there's a suicide, there's really nothing to investigate.
Right.
If it's a suicide. Because somebody killed themselves, case closed. So that's how they can just sort of cover it up. They never did an investigation. They never interviewed the EMTs that were called to the jail. They never interviewed the hospital personnel where his body was shipped. I can't get any answers to what investigation was done. When I met with the Justice Department people a few months after the death, every question I asked was answered by saying, after a thorough investigation, we determined it was a suicide. It was like them pleading the fifth. I got the same answer to every question I asked.
So, did you speak to Barbara Sampson, the official who ruled this?
No, I haven't been able to get to her.
She never called you?
No.
So in her public explanation, she has been asked about this. We tried to reach out to her. She refused to speak to us for reasons we don't understand. But in her official explanation, she suggested that she ruled it a suicide, effectively overruling the judgment of the people who actually were from the autopsy, because your brother had attempted suicide previously.
Yeah, but that's been shown to be false. You can listen to David Schoen, his attorney, on the podcast, the Crime Waves podcast. He explains that Jeff was attacked by his cellmate, but he didn't want to report it as such because he was afraid of retaliation.
But every news account of his initial injuries in the weeks before his death said that he had tried to kill himself in his cell. He was found in a fetal position on the floor after a failed suicide attempt, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, once somebody says that, then everyone picks up the same story, and then it becomes, the truth, just because it's been repeated so many times. But the fact is, he did not attempt suicide that first time.
So if he didn't try and kill himself the first time, then the medical examiner had no basis to declare this a suicide.
Exactly. But there's reasons why he wouldn't kill himself then. He had a hearing scheduled for